stories tonight. The first one is this extraordinarily sad story to report about Barbara Walters passing, a legend in broadcasting. This is breaking on one end of our coverage tonight. Barbara Walters passing at age 93. What an incredible life she's had, and what an incredible legacy Barbara Walters, the doyen of television broadcasting, leaves behind. She was the first female news evening anchor. And then after that, it was just a cascade of success, awards and productions and, shows that will.
Oh my God, Barbara Walters died. I can't believe it. I thought she was going to live forever. Yeah, Barbara Walters died. I'm learning now.
Live on, a legacy that will live on, a name that will forever be known as equating to excellence in television journalism. So I'm going to have more coverage on the passing of Barbara Walters in these last few hours. But then we're also covering this other incredible breaking story. After 47 days, the University of Idaho murders. Now we actually have an arrest. 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger being held tonight on a warrant for murder in the first degree ×4. Add to that a little burglary, and you have yourself the beginning of quite a set of indictments. He was captured early this morning, more than 2,000 miles away from the actual murder scene in Moscow, Idaho. He was found in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. A photo released by authorities shows Koberger wearing something they call an anti-suicide vest. It's that green padded thing that you see on there. It's not like a flak vest as it might appear. It's actually something that you can't tie into a knot, and you can't use it to hang yourself. And he's apparently on suicide watch to boot, because he's being held in a correctional facility where they have to keep an eye on him at this point at the Monroe County Correctional Facility. And at a news conference earlier today in Moscow, the police revealed very few things about this, few details, including when this guy became the focus of this investigation.
No arrest will ever bring back these young students. However, we do believe justice will be found through the criminal process.
Koberger appeared before a judge today in Pennsylvania, and that judge ordered him held without bail, pending an extradition hearing, which starts on Tuesday. By the way, by the time he gets to Idaho, there's not going to be any bail offered there also, because the authorities have also said not a chance on bond for someone who's being held on 4 capital murder charges, first-degree murder charges, in a state that, by the way, I'll remind you, has the death penalty. So usually you don't get bond when it's that serious. NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Enton is live for us in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania today. And you're one of the only people who's there. You got there as quick as you could. You witnessed a few things that I think other reporters haven't seen as well. And that is the condition of the home, where they actually showed up with multiple cruisers and multiple police vehicles. I'm told several SWAT units as well. What did you see there?
Yeah, so even before this was public, we got the tip that something was going down here in rural Pennsylvania, Monroe County. It's about 30 miles east or so of Scranton. And this is a small, gated, rural community behind me where all of this went down early this morning. This is where the suspect was. We believe his parents live here. He was staying with his parents. Police confirmed that they do have the white Hyundai Elantra that they.
Poor Brian, though, you can see how tired he is. That's like the last place he wants to be. You can see it in his face. You can hear it in his voice. Like, come on, Brian, snap out of it. Wake up.
We're looking for. Still don't have a murder weapon, but they did get the car. I got into the gated community earlier. I want to show you this, Ashley. It's so dark. It's so eerie in there. Each house is on about a couple of acres. There's barely any lights. That's me shooting. I walked up to the house. You can barely see because I almost didn't have any lights on. And there were people inside. I could see them through the windows. But no one wanted to talk to me. There was a voice from inside that said, basically, get out of here. You're trespassing, get out of here. And I tried to shout a few questions through the door. But what I want to show you when I get up close is you'll see it. I almost didn't notice it at first, but if you look closely, Ashley, the door, those lines, that is all like duct tape over the middle window. I'll go over to it again in a second. You see, that's tape over the window because the window, it looks like, was smashed out. And then there was also tape over near where the doorknob was. So it looks like an FBI task force, along with state police here, had to bust inside this morning when they went in for the arrest.
Yeah, I mean, there was a report earlier that it was something like 25 to 30 different vehicles had been there for that arrest, which is probably not surprising if it is a target this valuable. The possibility of him eluding capture in something that you said is pretty rural. It'd be easy to sort of get out and run and be in the dark. I can imagine that they would absolutely have every single egress covered and then go in with force and not allow anything to sort of go awry, because you can also have that as a standoff that can last for a long time and end very ugly as well. Go back to what you just said, Brian, about the people inside the home. There were people inside that home, or neighbors who were yelling, "Get out of here, nothing to see here, you're trespassing"?
No, there were people inside the home tonight, Ashley. I saw two people, and when I rang the doorbell, I heard them sort of like talking to each other, almost like, "What should we do? Should we open the door?" Just because I think they were surprised to see me, because, you know, there's not a lot of media here, and there's not really any media that was able to get into the neighborhood. And then they basically just shouted, you know, basically, "Get out of here."
Boy, that's something else. Because let's not forget, families of suspects can also be victims too. This could come as an extraordinary, gut punch to them. They may have had no idea. I did hear somebody ask a great question on Chris Cuomo earlier, and that is, if they did know, could they be charged with harboring a fugitive? And the answer is no to that, because he wasn't named until they arrested him. No one knew a name. No one knew he was wanted. So they are not guilty of any crime for having, a son or a friend, whoever's in that home, staying with them. That's not a crime to have someone staying with. If you know that they're wanted and you're secreting them away, then that's a crime. But they haven't committed any crime to our knowledge. And so this could be pretty traumatizing for them as well. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt at this early stage. But Brian, talk to me a little bit about what we know they have. And I guess the bigger
Let me just say, I gave the Brian Laundrie's parents, the benefit of the doubt. And after what I heard tonight, that will never happen again. I'll explain at a commercial.
picture, what we don't know they have on this Brian Christopher Koberger.
So they're not giving us a lot of details. We know they've got the car. We know they don't have the murder weapon. We know that they went in here this morning, where I'm standing in the neighborhood behind me, early this morning. I'm told like 1, 2 in the morning. There was also a search warrant today at Washington State University at the apartment where the suspect was living. And they were there for most of the day. They had the whole area roped off with crime scene tape going in and out. The prosecutor was even spotted there. And remember, Pullman's it's 10 miles from Moscow. I mean, the cities are basically connected, to college towns. And then we also know that they served a search warrant and went into Brian Koberger's office, because he was a PhD student at Washington State University. He had his own office on campus, and the university confirms that was also searched sometime today by the FBI.
Okay, the other thing is this suicide watch that we're hearing about, where he is being held at the Monroe County Correctional Facility. Look, it's a pretty rural area, but Monroe County is not so small. Do we know anything about where they've put him? Is he, here's my guess. He's not only on suicide watch, but he's in a protective custody of some kind. Do we know any details about how they're holding him? What's going to happen for the next 4 days until he has an extradition hearing? Whether he has any indication yet that he's going to waive extradition and cause us 30 more days of pain and suffering so that they can actually force the extradition on him? Like, what do we know about the way he's being held and how he's spending his first night?
So you mentioned it's suicide watch, and
Cali Kid, I actually said that earlier. Hey, Bedwolf, tell Nini stop trolling me. Cali Kid, I said that earlier, that even these quote unquote psychics, these spirit boards, everything that I said, that these people, it's all fake. Nobody even came close to predicting this guy.
have confirmed through a source that he is on suicide watch, and I think there is this sense here at the jail that, you know, they've now got this guy who is accused of these awful crimes, and they're now in the national spotlight. So I think they don't want to take any chances when it comes to making sure that he doesn't hurt himself right now. You know, in terms of in the jail, I did confirm through a source, and I'm just trying to pull up my notes here. Here we go, because I want to get it exactly right, the quote. I'm told that Koberger, when he was in custody at one point, said, he asked if anyone else was arrested. That is one of the statements that he made, asking if anyone else was arrested. And I'm also told, and this is the way it was described to me, that throughout this entire process, he has had a quiet, blank stare, which I thought was an interesting description. And there was even a woman out here that we talked to just a little while ago who had some dealings with him, coming and going. You know, earlier we had the person who jogged with him. There was another neighbor who saw him, who also mentioned that blank stare. She said, oh yeah, I saw him a couple times. And I'm like, how do you even remember if you've only seen someone a couple times in the neighborhood? And she said, it was something with his eyes. He had a blank look at his eyes, and I just always remembered it. And then when I saw him on the news today, it all clicked.
Enton, great job, and thank you for rolling on that video and being able to you know, hear the information inside. You know, the people whispering inside. It's chilling to think that they're in there, and to know what they've witnessed today, and to know who was in there with them, who is no longer with them, and who may never, ever see the light of day again. Brian Enton, live for us in Monroe County. Excellent work. I want to also go to our News Nation correspondent, Nancy Liu, who's been extraordinarily busy today as well. She was live all day in Moscow at the murder scene, where there's lots of news to report about that, but not before I go to Pullman, Washington, where she has now moved. And when we talked to you just not too long ago, Nancy, you were looking over your shoulder in that window, and it's the suspect's apartment where they are still executing a search warrant. Have you seen any more activity in that window, the flashes of the light bulbs, or anybody coming out with any evidence?
Yes, many more flashes. They are obviously taking a lot of pictures inside the apartment of Brian Koberger. And earlier we did see what appeared to be a mattress flipped up against the window. And then we saw more flashing. So they were taking pictures of anything under the mattress. But we believe that is a 2-bedroom unit on the 2nd floor. This is the Steptoe Village apartment complex here at Wazoo, which is, you know, earmarked for PhD and master's students, but they are being very thorough inside the apartment of Brian Koberger. We know there is a forensics unit inside. They have been collecting items, but we have not seen any items come out. However, just in the last 5 minutes, Ashley, we saw this vehicle reposition itself. It backed up into a slot near the stairway. So perhaps they're getting ready to bring some items out from the apartment. We don't know yet, but this has been a very lengthy process. We know that crews arrived here at around 6:37 in the morning, Pullman time. And here we are, you know, 7 o'clock at night, and they are still here. So a very thorough search going on here at the apartment of Brian Koberger on campus at Wazoo.
Wow. So we're looking at, you know, they've passed the 12-hour mark of the assessment. They're not even at the extraction of the evidence, and that evidence will be critical at trial. You know, what did they find in his apartment? Here's my guess. They're not going to find a murder weapon, because nobody's that dumb to you know, dispense with a murder weapon if in fact he is found, you know, guilty of this crime. But I am curious to see if they're going to bring out samples, because tiny samples, like mud samples, you know, sometimes there's red dirt in certain parts of our geography.
See, the one thing I kind of disagree with, I agree that the murder weapon's not going to be there. And remember, I had said that if, you know, I believe that whoever has the murder weapon drove it like to another state, and they have no way to know what state it's in. And I said that, and I still stand by that. But I think what they may be looking for is like a manifesto or something. That I think they're looking for on his computer or something that will explain why he did it. Personally, that's what I think they're looking for. Now, before I play this again, about this phone call, let me just clear this up once and for all. I don't know T-Rev that well, but I know him well enough to know that he doesn't come across, and I'm a pretty good judge of character. He doesn't come across as a liar to me. So I don't think he's lying or making something up about this guy calling in. What I haven't heard, because I didn't listen to him all day, but I haven't heard where the proof is that anyone thinks that he had called in. So again, T-Rev is not like JLR. I wouldn't support him if I thought he was. So I definitely don't believe that T-Rev made it up for views or something. That's not his personality. But that's what I'm saying, Tennessee. I don't know him like that. But I don't know when this guy allegedly called in. So does he have the video or something? I don't know. That allegedly the killer called into T-Rev's show. And again, I don't know. T-Rev does not come across to me like a liar. So I believe that he may really believe it. I just don't know. He didn't. I listened to it. He never said it. I know, but people are running with it. So that's why I'm curious what call it is and how would you even know? Call was 2 weeks ago. Aha.
And it doesn't exist.
Of his siblings. And I also heard that he could be kind of difficult with his siblings. And I'm talking now again about the murder suspect's father.
Were they surprised? I mean, these anecdotes are remarkable, but what about their affectation? Were they shocked, dismayed, upset, not surprised? Like, how do they feel about the fact that the person the entire country has been looking for ended up being their family member? Like, how surprised were they about this news that he's the suspect?
Not as surprised as you would think. The one aunt, the one that saw him a few years ago and talked about his food fetish, said she just heard about it. But she was incredibly calm. She is no longer married to the brother, so perhaps the fact that they're not specifically legally in the family anymore gives them some detachment. The other aunt, I'm the one that broke the news to her, and she was completely matter of fact and calm about the whole thing. They didn't want their names used, which is understandable. But no, I mean, I think if it were anyone I'd known, even if it wasn't a relative, I'd be shocked to my core. They did not seem to be that way to me.
It's remarkable. And, you know, something else, obviously, Dana, has happened tonight. And oddly enough, you have a connection to two very big breaking stories tonight. This one and the interviews that you were able to get with the suspect's aunts. But then also Barbara Walters passing. I mean, as luck would have it, you actually can tell us a little bit about Barbara because you worked with her at ABC. And I want to squeeze in a quick break, but when we come back, I want to get your thoughts on the passing of Barbara Walters at age 93 tonight. It is without question the end of an era. It is the beginning of a legacy that will forever be appreciated by women who are in television in any capacity because we.
All right, before we get into, Barbara Walters passed. I said that at the beginning of the live. 93 years old. Let me just say, if I live to 93, I'll be thrilled to death. 93 is it's a nice life, honestly. So let me just state this because someone posted it in chat and I'm going to say this again. I was watching News Nation before when I was picking up Phoenix. And Cuomo or one of the girls, and I'll play it after this, although I'm not going to be on late tonight because I got to finish painting. Cuomo or somebody was on and an expert, a quote unquote expert, quoted the TikTok video. Last time I checked, TikTok is not a reliable source of information. So to say that he had a heroin addiction in high school, can you prove it? Because even if he did, He was going for his doctorate. He's no dummy. He completed his master's. They say at a high level, like honors kind of thing, is what I heard a little while ago. This guy was not stupid. So he did heroin in high school. And I know people that did heroin in high school that are now cops. Like, I think it's absolutely asinine that they're quoting TikTok. An expert is quoting what he heard on TikTok. But either way, even if he was on heroin, he's not doing it anymore. Exactly, Kelsey. It's because of that, though, that I truly do not believe most of the shit I hear. Once it's proven, okay. But until it's proven, yeah, good luck. And that's because I did that little research project. Tammy Lou asks, welcome back.
When I was 9 years old, a lady named Barbara Walters joined ABC News. And I saw the possibility of being like her. And I went into this business always imagining that I would work the same way she would work, never retiring. She was my North Star. And today, here I am live on television reporting the passing of Barbara Walters at age 93. This is hard news to report. It is not unexpected. Barbara Walters has been in failing health for the last several years. She hasn't hosted an episode of The View since 2012, I think was her last episode. No, 2014. And at the time, she said that she didn't want to disappear completely, but that was her time to head off into the green grass with men and women, I think she put it. Dana Kennedy was a correspondent at ABC News, worked with Barbara Walters. She's on the air with me the prior segment talking about the other breaking news we've had. And as luck would have it, I can talk to someone who has a lot of knowledge, not only about Barbara Walters, but because you've been an entertainment reporter for so long, also in your career, you have a very fulsome and rich feeling for the tapestry of Barbara Walters' life, career, and legacy and effect on people like you and me in this business.
You know, Ashley, I think for so long when we were coming up, she was an absolute mainstay. And there was no discussion of things like Me Too or discrimination. I mean, she began in the writer's room at the Today Show in 1961, and she fought her way to be on the air. And she was also the first woman co-anchor back in 1976, where these days, I think you might think, oh, well, wasn't Katie Couric the first woman anchor? No, she wasn't. She went up against a guy named Harry Reasoner, who gave her a really hard time. It was kind of a disaster. But this is what Barbara Walters was all about. She never gave up. She was incredibly tough. She was incredibly tenacious. And what I liked about her when she went from NBC to ABC, when she created The View, which is when I was at ABC News.
Not always, though. She wasn't always a gossip queen. She was actually taken very seriously back in the day. Because I remember when I took communications in college, it was my first bout at college. And I looked up to her too. Like, I was like, I want to be like her. Then she went all crazy.
Is that she didn't try to, she wasn't one of those people that acted like she was sweet and just got somewhere by luck. She was tough and she admitted it. And you can only imagine, Ashley, what it took to start off in television news in the 1960s with people like Harry Reasoner and all those old white guys from back then.
Well, I started in 88 and it was.
Did she just say all those old white guys back then? Did she really just say that?
Hard enough then. So yeah, I sure do know that she blazed a hell of a trail for the rest of us. And I like you said, I looked to her as a North Star and thought if she can do it, so can I. So I looked to her as somebody who, helped make me who I am on television. And I know I'm not alone. Dana, the thing that's remarkable about Barbara Walters is how long she decided that she was going to stay working in this business when so many other people retire. She'd made loads of money. She'd been the most successful person, at every one of these jobs in TV news. She could have retired eons ago and enjoyed, a comfortable and easy life, but she didn't. She started producing shows in her 70s and then, anchored until she was in her 80s. So it's pretty remarkable to even have.
Honestly, though, Barbara Walters is one of the reasons I got into true crime. She was interviewing somebody after I was already into it. I was a teenager, but if I remember correctly, she was like the first like Dateline kind of show, and she was great. And I remember watching her, and I was like, "Wow, I want to be like her." I was like, "I like this stuff." That was like the very first like full on in true crime.
Heard in 2014 that she was going to step back from The View. And at the time she said, I do not want to appear on another program or climb another mountain. I want instead to sit on a sunny field and admire the very gifted women and, okay, some men too, who will be taking my place. Did you see her as this sort of affable and magnanimous person at ABC who was.
You know what it is, Coffee? She had that like Jackie O presence. Even if she was yelling at you, she was very, very well put together and very classy. Even if she was like, "You're a fucking murderer," she did it with grace and class. And I think that's been lost over decades. That Jackie O style no longer exists.
Really in it to help the others climb like she did, but maybe with not quite as much, difficult, animosity.
No, I think she definitely was that. And I think she also was just, a hard-nosed reporter and a hard-nosed producer. I mean, you hear about a lot of people that used to be on The View that would say in some ways she would terrify them, but she also would really support them. And one thing I always remember reading about her, Ashley, because it's been so long now, because she was 93 when she died today, but she was apparently very into men and very flirtatious, and men really liked her. Her father, Lou Walters, ran this big nightclub in New York. So she grew up around show business people, and she understood them, and she wasn't afraid of them. And I think that really helped her enter what became a very glitzy TV news world. Remember her great rivalry with Diane Sawyer? I mean, all this sounds so way back in the past, but it was a really big deal for a while. She was called the $1 Million Baby when she hooked up with Harry Reasoner for ABC News in 1976. That's a lot of money for 1976. She did okay for herself, and she inspired, as you said, a whole generation of women and those that coming up after us.
Boy, did she. I said this earlier on the show. It's hard to report this news, even though we knew that this was coming, because her health hadn't been as good as as it had been in the past. So it's just hard reporting the end of such an incredible.
Not yet, Ozzy, but it should be coming up.
I could talk about it with you because you and I have a long history together too, and it's nice that we both share that we look to her as our guidance. So, Dana Kennedy, thanks so much for helping us on both of the breaking stories. We have a few more years, yeah, just a couple. All right, Dana Kennedy, senior reporter for the New York Post, joining us. When we come back, I'm going to return to the other breaking story that we've been covering, and that is the really remarkable news of an arrest in the Idaho murders. Who is this guy? Brian Christopher Kohberger. It's the first time many of us had ever heard that name before, certainly not any of the names that have been bandied around anywhere else. And what a background this particular guy has. He is an accused killer at this point, but he will be a defendant in a courtroom. And with the knowledge that he possesses of criminal procedure and crime and punishment, just how hard is it going to be to convict him? That's next.
With thyroid eye disease.
I don't know why she said that. I thought that was very weird. I don't know. That's why I was like, did I just hear what I think I heard? So yeah, the only reason Banfield's not supposed to be back until next week. But I got home from picking up Phoenix, and I was going through my news feed, and I saw Ickedmel that said, I'm going to be on Banfield tonight. I was like, Banfield? And that was like 14 minutes before I went live. So I went live. I was like, got to see Ickedmel on Banfield, and my Banfield's back. No, she said, and she was there with all the old white guys. I was like, why would you say that? That was weird. It's going to be interesting to say. Yeah, his trial, it's definitely going to be strange. You know, and I was thinking in the car before when I was listening to a bunch of different people, actually News Nation, I was listening to a bunch of different like reports. You know, even if he doesn't have an attorney, he has studied, even if he has an attorney, he has studied criminology long enough. There's ways to beat everything. Don't be surprised if he beats this. I mean, I don't know what kind of DNA they have, but it just wouldn't surprise me if he somehow gets out of this. I don't know why. It just would not surprise me. I wouldn't be shocked if they found one jury to say that he was set up and that it wasn't him. And that it's been 47 days to, you know, it took 47 days. They should have had his DNA first. They should have had his, you know, I don't know. I just see so many loopholes that this could backfire. He wouldn't be the first murderer, the first person that murdered someone to walk away. And I don't think it was insanity. I definitely don't think that's it. PhD in well, he just started his PhD in criminology, but he has his master's in criminal justice and criminology. I mean, I only did 1 year of my master's, and even I took criminology classes, but they say his master's is in criminal justice. I sort of hope that if he did this crime, he gets fully. I agree with you. Exactly, Tammy. It could be plan B, or it could be that there really was somebody else with him. I don't think he did this alone. I really don't. I think that somebody else was with him. I really, truly do. But as I said earlier, I also believe the cops knew who this was immediately. They just sent all of us on a wild goose chase while they were working on the real criminal. He is a psychopath. I agree. And he's the worst type of psychopath. There's plenty of psychopaths that are fucking stupid. Hey, Joy, you know, there's plenty that are stupid that end up in jail all the time. He wasn't one of them. He was very smart and calculated. This wasn't a random act. He knew what he was doing. But again, when they say they knew it was targeted, they knew, in my opinion, they knew who this was instantly. How, I don't know. But they did. That's possible too, Grace. That's very possible too. Or maybe another car was like the lookout. No, but Grace has a really good point. His ego would want him to do this all by himself. I agree with that.
Welcome back. I want to get you live immediately out to Pullman, Washington, where our senior correspondent Nancy Liu is standing by. Nancy, you've been watching the apartment behind you, which was the apartment that belonged to the suspect that's been arrested in this case, Brian Christopher Kohberger. And there were investigators in there for 12 plus hours, and there's some movement. What's happened?
Yeah, just about a minute ago, the yellow tape was taken down. Law enforcement has now left, and we watched multiple bags and boxes being loaded and taken away as evidence. We also saw a computer loaded. So we don't know, you know, if they're looking for that digital evidence against Brian Kohberger, but this is his apartment. It's on the second floor. He lives in 201, and we believe this is a 2-bedroom apartment.
201. 2 plus 1 equals 3. Goes back to the original numbers. 3.
We noticed that they have not taped the door. I don't know if this is signs of them having tried to take fingerprints off this door, but they were inside this apartment for over 12 hours today processing evidence inside the apartment. Across the way here, we talked to this neighbor earlier, and he said that, you know, he ran into Brian Koberger here and there, and he described him as friendly and very talkative. We talked to another neighbor who just said this is just creepy because he had run into him in the laundry room, and Koberger
Nancy,
had talked about being a PhD student in criminology.
okay,
To have this
behind you.
happen,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
everyone's creeped out.
I'm so curious about what's behind you. That door behind you. Do you see? It's hard for us with the camera angle to see if there's any markings, if they've had to like force their entry. Do you see any sort of crowbar markings? Did they have to
No.
break open that door? Is the lock damaged at all? Does it look as though it was maybe unlocked when they got
No.
there?
They must have gotten a key because Washington State University police also involved in this investigation. These are university apartments. This is earmarked for PhD and graduate students. So we assume that Washington State would have the keys to this apartment because these are for students. And this is campus property.
Well, it would make absolute sense if they were able to get a master key and get in there without having to break down the door, but he certainly wasn't there. And you said that you saw them come out with a hard drive. Did you see them actually carrying a hard drive out?
Yes. Yes. A large computer, a complete computer set loaded into the back of a vehicle. We saw boxes, we saw bags, we saw what I think it looked like a bag of garbage. So maybe they retrieved some of Brian Koberger's garbage. And again, that, as you mentioned earlier, they're after DNA. His DNA, maybe in some of the garbage items that was tossed inside his home.
And then quick question about the number of people that you saw parading out of there. And I think I heard you say that they had boxes and bags. Did you see them with anything small, like small envelopes that would be, just, trace kinds of pieces of evidence, maybe like, bits of sand or just hair or fibers, those kinds of things? Or was everything sort of lopped into larger, undiscernible sorts of carrying containers?
It's quite possible, Ashley, because we saw suitcases, and inside those suitcases could be those envelopes of, minute traces of items, dirt and hair and fibers. So maybe those are inside envelopes. We don't know what was inside these suitcases. We saw a number of suitcases go out. We saw a number of boxes go out. We couldn't see what was inside those boxes. So it's possible, quite possible, Ashley, that those trace pieces of evidence could be inside.
Wow. The hard drive is the most fascinating thing you told me because, that's the first thing that is a telltale. Now, this guy that they've arrested is a PhD in criminology, so he probably is smart enough to know not to, investigate victims if he indeed is the perpetrator. He's accused at this point. However, everybody who thinks they're really smart at committing crimes, they are not perfect and usually screw up in one way or another. And I'm just fascinated to did you tell me how many people that you saw, how many investigators came out of the apartment?
We saw at least 3 forensic technicians, but we also had a Washington State University officer here as well. And earlier we had Moscow police here as well. We also had Idaho State police here as well. So about 5 or 6 people here throughout the day, but what a long day for them. They were so thorough inside, taking multiple pictures. I mean, as we said earlier, flash bulbs going off inside we saw for hours. So they definitely were quite thorough inside this apartment.
The scrutiny on this case, Nancy, as you know, is going to be electrifying. And so to say that they have to cross every T, they'll have to do that 10 times. To say that they need to dot every I, they'll have to do that 20 times. And it will be excruciating for a jury as well, because any defense attorney worth her, weight in salt is going to be able to mine for anything that goes wrong in the collection process of evidence where you are right now. Fantastic reporting. I can't even believe I'm looking at you outside of that door right now after they've literally just walked out and pulled down the crime scene tape. Nancy, just fantastic exclusive reporting for News Nation. Congratulations. We will be right back after this break because there is a deep dive that we still have to do onto exactly what they've got on this person, what they don't have on this person, and how much we have yet to find out because, ladies and gentlemen, it is only the tip of the iceberg. Those affidavits are about to open up, and cascading out will be all of the details that led police right across the country and right to his doorstep. Back after this.
Now, let me tell you something, though, that I was just thinking about. What if? Just what if? Oh, man, I should have wrote this down because now I'm about to forget. Ugh. I had this at the tip of my tongue, too. It'll come to me. Oh, my God, I can't believe I just forgot. I don't know, Dennis. Oh, this is what it was. I know what I was. Something in my gut tells me that this technology like they had on TV, we never thought was going to be possible, that they could like do face recognition and they knew exactly who he was instantly, but they didn't know where to find him. Something in my gut tells me that is what went on. And now I don't know if the technology part I'm right about, if it was absolutely that kind of technology, but that's what I keep thinking. Yeah, but Nicole, they knew it was him, or I believe they knew something before DNA would have ever even came back. That's why I said, if you go back to the very first press conference, they said that it was targeted, or that like they knew information that they couldn't have known because DNA wouldn't have come back yet. We all said maybe they're full of shit, they're just kind of talking out of their ass. But I think there was video imaging that showed, I can't, it's Banfield, it's live. Video that showed who this person was. The white car. But again, they didn't know where he was. I don't, Phil. I think there was somebody else involved. Whether it was somebody else in the house, somebody that drove a car, somebody that was in that white truck that was on lookout, something. Do I think that he stabbed all of them alone? Yes, I do. But I have always said that. Those feelings that I've had on the case have not changed. The feelings are the things I said back then is the exact same things I'm saying now. Nicole, but if you go back to, well, so is Apple technically, Bedwolf. If you go back to the first press conference, the very first press conference, the police act like they knew who it was. Then they said later, they turned around and said, yeah, they did some MacGyver shit and found him with matches and toenail clippers. Love it. Mel has not been on yet. But he might be coming up now.
Welcome back to our continuing breaking coverage of the arrest of a suspect in the murders of those 4 college kids in Moscow, Idaho. Brian Christopher Koberger was picked up in Pennsylvania, but over 2,000 miles away in Pullman, Washington, they were executing another search warrant in the apartment that he rented on campus at the Washington State University, where he was in a PhD program. And this is the breaking news I wanted to show you. This video from Nancy Liu has just come in, and what you're witnessing, folks, is the 3 investigators that looks like they were the forensic investigators loading out the evidence from his apartment after spending over 12 hours inside that apartment, collecting, gathering photographing, assessing every single thing that Brian Christopher Koberger had in that apartment. And they're carrying it out, as you can see, in boxes, envelopes, bags, cases. You saw the equipment that was coming out, the digital equipment, hard drives, computers, etc. Every piece of this will be critical in any kind of prosecution as we now move forward in this prosecution and evidentiary phase of this crime solving. I want to bring in Michael Harrigan. He's a retired FBI special agent. He's the former chief of the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. Melvin Cedeno is a true crime YouTuber who covers murders, cold cases, and missing persons cases. And our friend Lauren Mathias is back with us. She's a former reporter, Idaho resident, and host of the Hidden True Crime podcast and YouTube channel. Okay, I want to start with you, Michael Harrigan. You saw those pictures. You watched those investigators as they came out. Nancy Liu just said flashbulbs all day long, 12 hours inside that apartment before all of a sudden, Shazam, out there all coming with a parade of evidence. Give me your thoughts.
Well, Ashley, you think about all the work that's gone in the last 6 weeks, all the forensic work at the scene of the crime. Now you've got this scene here in Washington, and along with where he was arrested. So you have a whole nother slew of forensic information, computer information that has to be studied, analyzed, collated, and then the results of that will likely lead to additional leads. So there's a lot of work for these investigators to do in the coming weeks and months beyond the crime scene now.
All right, Melvin, I want you to step in on just what the true crime community has been doing, because I'll be honest with you, they have been at the forefront of a lot of tips and a lot of resolution. You yourself was at you were at the forefront of knocking down a terrible rumor and somebody who was lying and cheating and trying to insert himself into the story and fabricating a fake scream. But with this incredible breaking news, the true crime community has got to be pretty overwhelmed, as well as those who have been falsely accusing others in this story.
Right. The true crime, they've been digging into this guy, Brian. People have a lot of questions like motive and why. Was this random? Was this targeted? If it was targeted, was it, who was targeted? Was it one? Was it multiple people? And why did Brian not go downstairs? And also this research project that has been coming out, because the sleuth community pulled up this Reddit post where he did this research project calling for criminals to come forward and fill out this survey about how they feel about the crimes that they've committed, and even people that haven't been convicted to come forward. If you've never been caught, we'll keep it anonymous.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the troubling things I saw was, somebody who I think considers herself a podcaster, accusing a professor, an assistant professor at Idaho State University, multiple times of being a murderer. And there's already a libel case against her. So it's very upsetting to think of the number of people who've been through hell and back, having been accused online. I appreciate the work that you've done, Melvin, especially calling out those who have been lying and proving it, doing the work to prove it. Lauren Mathias, you've been able to find something out as well today, which is fascinating, about the suspect, Brian Christopher Koberger's past. What did you find out?
Yes, we've uncovered from the Pleasant Valley School District in Pennsylvania. We learned that in 2016, he was hired as a custodian. 2018, you can see that he was then made a security officer, a part-time security officer. And then you see in 2021, he was actually a security officer, and he left without pay, which we can speculate that might mean that he was laid off from that security guard job that he had clearly at a school in Pennsylvania. Just another interesting layer to this onion. Not only was he a PhD student studying criminology, he was also hired by a school district to protect students, it seems like.
We had someone reach out to News Nation who'd said that she wanted to remain anonymous, but she said that she knew him back in those days when he was the security guard, and especially at the time that he'd been fired, saying that there was also an allegation of a drug problem that went on well past the school days in the Pleasant Valley School District and also past the security guard job as well, that there was an issue with, I believe, methamphetamines. And again, that was somebody who did not want to give her name, but she was said that she'd had this history of knowing him.
Of course she didn't want to give her name because she's full of shit.
Back in the days at the Pleasant Valley School. I want to go back to Michael Harrigan for a moment, just about what I thought was astounding, but perhaps they can do their work very quickly. 12 hours, I think, is quickly. But back in Pullman, Washington, where Kohlberger was living before he decided to head home to Pennsylvania, not sure when he went home, if it was around the same times as all the rest of the students from University of Idaho went home after the murders, or if he went home sometime after that. But they took garbage and boxes and bags and cases, which is not unusual. But the crime scene tape is down, Michael. And I would have expected that they leave the crime scene tape up because they might want to go back and just double check if there was anything they left behind, or on the advent of bringing the evidence back, for analysis, they think, I want to go back and check that spot again to see if there's anything else. Are you surprised to see the crime scene tape down after just 12 plus hours?
No, not really. I think the investigators, if they think they've got everything they need, I'm sure they have some agreement with the university to keep that apartment secured and to be able to go back in if they have to. So I'm sure they've got what they need at this point. I think, the important point is that if they were thorough, and I'm sure they were very thorough in this, the pressure on these investigators is immense. And especially now that they've got an arrest, they have to build this case for court. And they are focused 100% on making sure every T is crossed and every I dotted so that they don't inadvertently create issues during any upcoming trial.
So I wanted to ask you, Michael, on one of the T-shirts of the women working the forensic scene, it said Idaho State Forensics. I've only got about 30 seconds left, but with there it is up close, state, forensics there. Would the FBI have been there, or would they leave this to the state?
Generally, they would leave this to the state unless the state is asking for their assistance. And many times it's good in an investigation to bring out the forensic experts from your labs, if you have the luxury of doing that, to get them at the scene for their expertise in collecting the evidence, which is so critical in how you collect it. And while most investigators are pretty well versed in that, you really want to go with the A-team on these things and get those experts from the lab on scene if you can.
Well, our hats off to Nancy Liu and her crew for getting those pictures. That was pretty remarkable that they saw them coming out and bringing all that evidence out with them. Michael Harrigan, thank you for that. Melvin Cedeno and Lauren Matthias, thank you as well for helping us out tonight in this breaking news. We really appreciate you guys doing this, especially late at night with such a breaking story. I'm going to take a quick break, back with a couple final thoughts in just a moment.
Ickedmel's the goat. I'm a goat. No, Ickedmel was on there because Banfield likes him from calling something out a day after I did, but calling something out and proving it or some shit. Whatever. They say it's court ordered stuff. Yes, they did say it was court ordered. Probably because they can't, my guess is they can't clean it up until the extradition is done. Once the extradition is cleared and he's back in Idaho, I think they can do it then. But what I think they want, and this is just a guess from knowing how this stuff works, my guess is it is one of those crossing every T. Reason I say that is he gets extradited. Okay, so now they know who he is. They extradite him back to Idaho. He hires an attorney. That attorney may want to go visit the crime scene with his own experts. The cops don't want to be put in a position where they're not able to, the other side is not able to go to the crime scene. That's not me, Janice. That's Banfield. Yeah, I guess. Oh, I knew they wouldn't find a weapon. That, as I said originally, that weapon is between Idaho and Pennsylvania. and it's somewhere far, far away. No, I have more than 3 thumb ups. I have indigestion. Let's all remember that we are not our titles. We are flawed human beings. I am perfectly imperfect. I will always be perfectly imperfect. And I am proud to be perfectly imperfect. I want to know, we all do. His background, he's got a great background. So, that's what I was going to say too. All these people that about the heroin, about this, about that, if you notice, the experts or the people they have on that are looking into his background have not said anything about drugs. Only people on the internet are saying it. I don't care if he had a drug problem in high school. He seems to have his shit together. So I don't give a fuck what he did in high school. He doesn't have a PhD. He is a PhD candidate first year. He's a first year PhD candidate in Washington. Maybe. He may keep his mouth shut. Oh, no, Tammy, I disagree. I think he took it. I mean, I think he chucked it. I don't think he has it. If he was smart, he got rid of it. I think one person, all right, let's hear closing arguments. Hold on. Well,
We have an individual in custody. I believe our community is safe. That individual is Brian Christopher Koberger, and tonight he's on suicide watch at the Monroe County Correctional Facility. No bond, not here, likely not in Idaho either, when eventually he's extradited. He's facing 4 first-degree murder charges, and I'll remind you, Idaho is a death penalty state, whether they ask for the death penalty or not. If he's guilty of this crime, he's never, ever going to see the light of day. They call it toe tag parole when you don't actually get death. You go out with a toe tag. Thank you for joining us tonight on this special edition of Banfield. Please stay tuned. My colleague Chris Cuomo has a special 2-hour report coming up as well, and I'll see you again on Monday.
Does this mean I'm here for another 2 hours? Cuomo has a 2-hour report? I don't know, guys. My painting might not get done tonight, depending on how well this is. See how much I like you guys?
Hello, I'm Chris Cuomo, and we are live tonight with breaking news. The authorities in Idaho have found the man they believe is responsible for the murder of 4 students there some 7 weeks ago. Now, there's a lot of information coming out about this man and about how they found him. And for the last several hours of my ability to process with some sources that are involved in the investigation, much of it is untrue. So here's what we absolutely do know from authorities, okay? They arrested a man who's 28 years old named Brian Koberger. He was arrested near the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. That's where his family lives. That's where he attended school. However, he is currently attending school in Washington State University. He's a PhD student studying criminal forensics. And yes, that's not a coincidence. And what we have been able to pull together about him creates a very interesting picture for authorities of someone with psychopathic tendencies. We have experts to take you through that tonight. But you have to remember, and this is something that was ignored early on in this investigation. I'll ask you to move the prompter when I need it. Just keep it where it is. Washington State University is only 10 minutes from the University of Idaho. Early on, there was a very small circle drawn in this investigation that they were looking locally. That was inaccurate, and the authorities weren't doing that. The rest of us were, okay? And they had a wider ambit. Yes, they were thinking about that car. Yes, it was key to their investigation. We'll get into why. But he was at Washington State University, where there are tens of thousands of people. So this was a much bigger universe of possibility than many of us understood watching the investigation unfold. So this is the man on your screen, PhD student, has a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, an associate degree before that, criminology. He was obviously very into the psychology of crime. We have information that we believe is from a Reddit account that he was managing, where he was asking people questions that we don't know were really attached to research. They may have been his own personal research. This is what we have found on Reddit. It does seem to go to him. We have not heard anything else. He did go to DeSales University in Pennsylvania. That's where he got his bachelor degree or his master's degree. And this is him soliciting information. So I'm going to take you through this in more detail and what he was asking people, how that plays into what we understand about him. Maybe he also called into a podcast that was covering this, one of these new digital forums that has popped up with people who have real true crime interest. We're not sure about that. But as we develop it, I'll let you know more about it. There's somebody that we're trying to track down right now on TikTok who says that she was friends with him and has text messages with him back to 2013. That's something that we're trying to track down, and I'll let you know what we understand. So that is the...
Why would you still have text messages from 2013? Who even still has a phone from 2013? I don't believe it.
Man, Koberger. Authorities today said that they have a very high degree of confidence about the arrest, and he has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, okay, and with felony burglary. Why? That's called a layered charge. When you go into somebody's domicile without permission, that is a crime. It's a burglary. Felony burglary speaks in Idaho to 2 things. One, it's a level of criminality, felony more than misdemeanor, you know this. And also, it is a felony murder, which creates a very heightened punishment and a heightened urgency within the law. Why does that matter? Because they're going to want to make sure they have as many irons in the fire against this man as possible, because they want to secure their prosecution. And that goes along with the first degree murder counts, which is, of course, premeditated intentional murder. All right. Now, looking at the arrest and charging documents, he's currently in Pennsylvania. Okay, again, that's where his family lived. That's where he had attended school. It's like in the Poconos. At some point, I'll get a map up. It's actually not far from the metropolitan area, New York, Philadelphia. He is facing an extradition hearing. Okay, what we know from the disposition of the case in Pennsylvania so far is they got him early in the morning on the 30th, about 2 o'clock in the morning. He has been denied bail and approved for extradition, even though the hearing is on Tuesday. It should be perfunctory, okay? An FBI surveillance team in the Philly field office had been tracking him for days, maybe as many as 4 days. How do we know that? Because that's what the authorities let us know today. Now, these Reddit posts, we're going to get to those. Now, we want to back up for a second to who we want to remember here and why.
I just want to say this because the people have asked me an extradition hearing, even if I say it wrong, what that means, they just need to prove that he's who they believe he is. A lot of people think, oh, can he not go? You know, can he lose the hearing? Can Idaho lose the hearing? The only thing, like, let's say with him, let's say there's Cuomo, or I'll use Banfield, it's easier. So let's say my name is Banfield and her name is Banfield, and we both live in the same state. Maybe they arrested her when they really meant to arrest me. So they need to prove that that is the exact person that they're looking for. And as long as they can prove that it's that Brian and not a different Brian that they're actually looking for, he'll go. But if for some reason they prove that they have the wrong Brian, then they wouldn't extradite him. That's all the extradition hearing is. It's just to prove that you are that person.
This is so important, okay? 7 weeks ago, 4 students killed in their home brutally, okay? 2 were also in the home, were not killed, apparently slept through the whole situation. I want you to remind you of their names and show their pictures. Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Remember,
putting that name out there, having a suspect, that they will get even more information to build their case. We have actually moved to Washington State. We're now on the campus of Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, outside the campus apartment of Kohberger, and forensics experts or technicians are now inside. They just turned on the lights inside the apartment. That is where the windows, the shades are drawn in that second floor apartment. I spoke to the neighbor right across the hall. He described Kohberger as very friendly and talkative. I also just talked to another neighbor who ran into Kohberger in the laundry room of this complex here at Washington State University. He said that also Kohberger, very friendly and talkative, and he was telling him about how he's a PhD candidate in criminology and he's very interested in criminal psychology. And this neighbor was telling me, telling him, wow, this is so impressive. And now that this has happened, that his neighbor has been arrested and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, he says that is pretty creepy. But this is university housing reserved for masters and PhD students here at Washington State. So now this investigation has crossed state lines over to Washington State University, which comes as a surprise to all these Washington State University students who have also been following this tragic murder, quadruple murder, over in Moscow, Idaho. So quite a development today, which now we know this investigation crosses at least 3 states now.
Right. And obviously, Washington State University has a lot of exchange with Moscow, Idaho, and that campus and back and forth, and authorities knew this. One last thing for you, Nancy, and obviously, if you learn anything during the pendency of my coverage, please get to the control room. I'll come right back to you. The truck behind you, does that have police tape on it because they think it's connected to him in some way, or is that just, that's the way they were just blocking off the area?
No. This belongs to the investigators who are here processing the scene. They are inside. We saw them put on the booties. They put on the gloves. They're inside now. We haven't seen any evidence get removed from the apartment, but they told me they expect to be here several hours at least, but we'll certainly come back to you if we see any other activity
coming out. There will be plenty of activity. Thank you very much, Nancy. We'll stand by for you. Brian, thank you very much, bud. Now, what is their understanding about the exit from Washington State to Pennsylvania? We know they'd been tracking him for days. Authorities say that an FBI surveillance team had been on it. Is this just him going home, or do they believe he was on the run?
Yeah, it appears that he went home, Chris. We're about 60 miles east of Scranton in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. This is a gated rural development behind me here in the mountains, and this is where his parents live, and this is where the arrest was made early this morning. We're told sometime around 1 or 2 a.m. is when the police first showed up to this neighborhood. We also know that the Hyundai Elantra that police have been looking for now for weeks was also located. The murder weapon was not located. They've got the neighborhood closed off right now. I was able to get in with a resident about a half an hour ago. Very, very dark and rural in this neighborhood. No street lights. Each house is on a couple of acres. I went up to the house where all of this went down. There were people inside, banged on the door, and they basically said no comment at this point. I can tell you, Chris, that Brian Kohberger right now is in the jail here in Monroe County. I have confirmed that he is on suicide watch right now. And I also confirmed through a source that while he was in custody, he asked if anyone else has been arrested, which was an interesting question. And I am told that he has had a quiet, blank stare throughout the entire process while he has been in custody, Chris.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for what you've been feeding throughout the day on this, giving us the early jump on it so we could get organized. As always, whatever you need people to know, come to me. Enton has been the man from the beginning. Let's take a quick break and keep organizing information. We have some color and context about who this guy is,
No, he definitely had blue eyes. I'm looking at a 49-inch monitor. It was definitely blue eyes. Kat, I agree. I believe this was very planned out. I believe that murdering somebody was planned out for a long time. And this is just one of those things that one of those kind of cases that they just happen to be the targets. They just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it could have been anybody. I mean, my personal opinion, psychopaths like him don't come around very often. Smart, weird ears, but smart, not ugly, very normal looking, attractive, good schooling, educated, money. They just don't come around often. This is not the type of guy you're going to see every day, going out murdering people. It's just one of those freak things. Iowa death penalty is inactive, but this case has nothing to do with Iowa. Calculated, yeah, this was like, I'm trying to think of the last serial killer. I mean, the last killer we had like this, and I can't think of one. I really can't think of one. Because all the others were like serial killers. He wasn't a serial killer as of right now. I think we'll find that all the postings the girls placed on social media may play a part in this. Maybe, but you don't want to blame the victim either. Hang on, I got to get Tums. Ramirez was a serial killer, though. He wasn't a serial killer. He was more of a mass murderer that didn't fit into the mold. He did follow both Manny and Kayla along with liking when. Yeah, but I'm sure he followed a lot of people. Yeah, but why them? I think he followed a lot of people. Oh, Idaho death penalty. Yeah. A tooth fairy? Yeah, but he was older than them by a lot. So that's the part that I don't know. One of them reject. That's a theory, but there's no proof for that. And why would he even want to date them? They were so much younger. And they both had boyfriends. But what I do wonder, was he the guy in the bar? Was he the guy that was following them? Was he the guy in the white truck? Was he the one Adam allegedly kicked out? Don't know. I heard somebody say that they believed he was in the house. I don't believe he was in the house. I believe he was in the bar. I believe he watched them. He followed them. He knew what he was doing that night. And that's why the two surviving roommates survived, because they were in the house. He saw the other four go home. Age difference wasn't much, but kind of. I mean, here's a doctor. Why didn't he kill at his own college?
All right. I'm Chris Cuomo. Thank you very much for joining us on our special coverage here. This is very much happening in real time. The authorities have come out earlier this
333 following me right now. 333. Think about that. Well,
we tracked him across the country. He is an educated white man who is currently a doctoral student at Washington State University. Now, why is that part interesting? Well, there's a lot interesting about this. No one thought this was random crime. Everybody thought they were going to find someone who had been predatory. This man creates a very intriguing picture on that. And again, very early in the process, he has been charged. First-degree murder, 4 counts, felony burglary, that's for the entry, that's to layer the charges, to give more irons in the fire to prosecutors. They seem to speak with a very high degree of confidence that this is their man. How do we know? We don't know. We don't know until the trial comes. They've talked about DNA evidence. They've talked about a car. We don't know what he has said, except Brian Enton just reported to us that supposedly this man, Brian Froberger, said in custody, has anyone else been arrested? Now, what does that mean? One, could be legitimate curiosity, although he would know if anybody else were involved. That takes us to the second, which is this someone who likes to mess with people's minds? There is some circumstantial evidence to suggest that about him and something about his past that seems to feed into that understanding. But again, we're developing very early on, and we go on what we know. What we know is he's in custody. The authorities have charged him, and they say that DNA was a significant part in making this development. How so? C.C. Moore, expert on forensics, specifically DNA techniques, has solved 250 criminal cases, including the Golden State Killer, which was made into that big Netflix series. CC, I told you I'd have you back. I did not know it would be this soon, but thank you very much. Obviously, the news demands it. Help me understand. I'm assuming a guy like this didn't pop up in the codex. He didn't pop up in the known criminals' DNA samples as a doctoral student somewhere. It's usually hard to get into those programs if you have a criminal past. So what does that mean about how they use DNA to find somebody like this?
I just need to backtrack really quickly and make a clarification. I did not work on the Golden State Killer case. The techniques that were used to solve that case were techniques that I pioneered for adoption work. And so I just want to clear that up because there's been some confusion there. I have been involved in 250.
Good, thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to make sure we make that really clear. As far as the DNA in this case, it's obvious that there was no CODIS hit. He apparently doesn't have any criminal background, so there's no reason he would have been in the law enforcement databases. So that means the possibility is still open that they used investigative genetic genealogy in this case. And I think the timing is about right for that. Now, this is purely speculation, but if they didn't get that CODIS hit, they would have known quite quickly, and they could have moved to the investigative genetic genealogy process right away. They could have sent that DNA in for that specialized analysis that is done for these cases. That might have taken anywhere between 2 weeks and maybe a month. They probably rushed it, so maybe even a little sooner. And sometimes you can identify someone once you get that file and upload it to those databases in just hours. I have lots of cases. I've been able to identify that individual, that DNA contributor, in just a couple of hours or a couple of days. But I built out Brian's tree a little bit, sketched it out real quickly, and it looks like all of his ancestral lines immigrated to the United States in the last several generations. That means that this would have been a more difficult.
I just want to say that you expect me to believe, not you guys, but the police expect me to believe that someone who's gone through schooling through criminology, master's degree in his doctrine, has never given fingerprints for DNA testing or how DNA testing works. I have a hard time believing that his fingerprints are nowhere on file, making it all the way to a doctorate degree for criminology. I got a hard time believing that.
Case for investigative genetic genealogy, they might have had to work on it day and night for a couple of weeks. And so that actually fits with this timeline really well. Now, of course, we don't know. It could be something else. It could be that last night I said to you it's unlikely he suited up like Dexter. But now that we know about his background, I think it's very possible that he went to great lengths to not leave his DNA behind. And perhaps there was really small trace amounts, and that took a lot longer for the crime lab to be able to analyze. So it's pretty still wide open as far as what method they used. They could have used something called an MVAC that pulls really trace amounts of DNA from material. They might have used touch DNA. It's, we obviously don't know yet. They could have had a mixture of DNA that they had to work on deconvoluting. And so all of those processes could account for the weeks that it's taken.
And obviously, they had the helping hand of the FBI that would have helped with different tools in that regard.
See, I disagree. What took so long is they couldn't find him. They knew who he was. They couldn't find him.
And expediency also. However, they still had to know who they were looking for. So I wonder if the connective tissue here investigatively is they knew they were looking for this car. Maybe they knew more about the car than we did, so that they had identities attached to the vehicle, and then they were able to cross-reference that with the DNA search.
Right, so it could have gone either way, where they followed that lead and it led them to him or maybe a couple people, and then they were able to do that direct comparison with that law enforcement genetic profile, the one that is evidence in court. Or they may have used investigative genetic genealogy to narrow down to him and his family. And so we obviously don't know.
Now, this car, just to cut you off for 1 second, this car that we're showing right now is not the car. This was another Elantra that had been found somewhere in Eugene, Oregon, and people had speculated that maybe this is not the car. They found the car in Pennsylvania because it was his car, says the authorities. So this is not the car. Just to keep it straight, obviously we're looking for picture to cover because it's television, but that is not relevant picture. All right, so I follow you up to that. I want you to circle back to one idea, though, that'll be new for the audience. How do they find your DNA if you are not in the system through this ancestral DNA thing? How does that work? What needs to be available to find me through these other people?
That's a great question. And so it's very rare that we will find a close family member, and certainly not the suspect, in our genetic genealogy databases. So what we're looking for are people who share what we consider significant amounts of DNA, but it can be less than 1% of their DNA. If you share only 1% of your DNA, then you're likely third cousins with someone, which means you share your great-great-grandparents. And so we get a whole list of people that share segments of DNA with this unknown person we're trying to identify, and we can reverse engineer their family tree by who they're related to. So the only reason two people would share these significant stretches of DNA across their genome is if they have a common ancestor in their family tree. They have to have inherited that DNA from someone back in that tree. And so hopefully you'll get matches to different lines, their mother's side, their father's side. In some cases, you get all four grandparents' lines. And we all have unique family trees, except for our full siblings. And so if you're able to put enough of those ancestors back in that tree and piece it together, that's going to narrow it down to just one immediate family. Sometimes you can't get quite that far, so you might have to look at first cousins if you can only get to grandparents. But that's how we do it. We're not using close relatives in most of these cases. It's usually people who won't even know the suspect.
Understood. You still need a name, though. You need somewhere to start. So they have to have something that helps them develop an understanding.
Right. So we wouldn't have his name.
So that is our last question, which is, right. But the question is, why would you have any name like that had to have some type of other investigative link that we have to figure out from the authorities when they give it to us. Now, the only other question mark, and I'll use this to go into break, there are a lot of questions here, obviously, and that's okay. The authorities deserve confidence after making this arrest, assuming they can make it stick. In his past, is it true that he had a history of drug use? And if so, did he ever have any kind of interchange with authorities or any facilities where they had DNA available? That's something we'll discuss going into the next segment. because as we're developing a picture of who knew him and how they knew him, there are some more aspects to him that may have made him more identifiable. So, Cece, thank you very much. I'll be coming back to you. When we come back, we're going to pursue this. We're going to look at some information.
I don't normally watch Cuomo, but he's like in my head. Like he's asking the questions that I'm kind of curious about and that I've been thinking about. I never really watched him before, but I'm kind of liking this. He's much more thorough than Banfield. She's more, whatchamacallit? She's more sensationalism. But let me tell you guys while we're on a commercial, did you guys hear what's going on in the laundry case? Holy shit. So it turns out, remember the letter that was sent that said, burn this after you read it, from Brian Laundrie's mom? Well, inside that letter was released. Inside that letter, she said to Brian, do you want me to bring you a shovel to bury Gabby? No joke. I was dumbfounded. So that means that Bertolino completely lied. So Bertolino lied. Is that illegal? Can you legally lie to the public like that? But yeah, JB did it's like a 16-minute video. I was I was like, holy shit. So yeah, that letter was for real. And why it was released, I don't know. But yeah, I'll play it after this. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy shit. So yeah. Attorney privilege, but he lied. He blatantly lied. Yeah, it's on JB did it. Lawyers, they can lie to protect their clients. Yes, Barbara Walters died today. We discussed that earlier. Alhuda, I agree. Totally agree with that. Now I know why they're suing. Lawyers lie in court. I didn't know they could lie like that. And does lawyer confidentiality get dismissed because he's no longer their lawyer? But I think technically he's their Florida lawyer, so that protects him. But how crazy is that? In the letter, she said, do you want me to help you bring a shovel to bury Gabby? That's some sick shit. That is some serious sick shit. And what popped up on my little news feed, where'd it go? Uh-oh. Where'd it go? I know he died. Where was the other news report? I lost it. There's another news report I wanted to read, but I can't find it. I don't know where Gator is. Damn, there's another report. I don't know where it went. I don't even remember the title. It looked like a really good title too, and I lost it.
Proved to be the best way to do this right now. You have an arrest. The authorities in the Idaho murder situation, they've had the FBI involvement, the local authorities in Moscow, Idaho. They arrested a man today, 28-year-old Brian Fosberger. He is a doctoral student at Washington State University, which is right next to Moscow, Idaho. And there's a lot of interchange between this campus, Washington State, of tens of thousands, and that's tiny place of Idaho in Moscow. So the idea that it was only about that little town was never true. Authorities knew it. And sure enough, the person that they believe is responsible, that they made the arrest of today in Pennsylvania, where he's from, Washington State University. This is him. They say blank stare, had nothing to say except Brian Enton reports he asked if anyone else had been arrested. Is that legitimate curiosity, or is he playing a game? There's reason to believe that that may be something he's capable of given his criminology background. They have said nothing about him denying it or anything like that. Now, insight into who he is, there is a good indicia of reliability to a young woman on TikTok who says she knew him back in high school, 2013, has messages with him, talks about his past of drug abuse and what that meant. And we've put together a sample of what she's offering up. It's at KCFARTZ on TikTok. If anybody knows her or if she's watching right now, please respond to us so that we can further verify what you know about him and fill out our picture. And I hope you know authorities. I hope you're in contact with them, because they very much want information about this man from anyone who knows him, and you certainly seem to qualify. So here's what's on TikTok that may be giving us the best window so far into who the authorities believe is responsible for killing those 4 Idaho University students.
I used to be friends with Brian Koberger during my middle and high school years. And then before anyone comes at me and says that I'm just running for clout, I'm not. I have pictures that I will show you. I have screenshots that I will show you. I have yearbook pictures that I show you. I went to school with the kid. I was friends with him. I wouldn't make something like this up. I am just in absolute shock right now. My brother was really good friends with him. My other friend, Brandon, was really good friends with him. Obviously, that's Brian. Still has the dead face that it's thighs. I don't know. But when I spoke to him back in 2017, he was clean. He was a heavy heroin user back in high school. And it was just nice to see the kid clean up. And at that time, he said he was doing security detail. I believe it was out of school is what he told me. My mom sent me the old school yearbook. That was him. Brian Koberger, that's him. He went to Pleasant Valley. Graduated with, I think, my friend Christopher, a year younger than me. This is when he nonchalantly decided to make me drive him around the Poconos for heroin, and I had no idea. I thought I was just doing a nice deed because he needed something, and it turns out that he was getting heroin.
Okay, there's no proof on those text messages. It's just text messages, but there's no proof.
Now, they're fairly reliable, obviously the same guy. If that is true, that he has a past of heavy drug use, okay? There's a difference between somebody who's smoking weed and someone who is a heroin addict who has to go to rehab for it. Now, what does that inform us to in terms of what that could put into his character profile? We have a great panel. Mark Eiglarsh, former prosecutor, veteran criminal defense attorney. James Gagliano, a former FBI supervisory special agent and been helping me on investigations for many years. And Chris Mohandy, clinical, police, and forensic psychologist. Mohandy, it's good to have you. Eiglarsh.
VZ, no. Their lawyer in Florida, I forgot his name, Bertolino. He's the one that said that it happened before the trip. but that letter did not happen before the trip. It's common sense that'll tell you that letter didn't happen before the trip.
Lars, thank you very much once again. And Jimmy, it's good to see you. I'm sorry that we're all united in this, but at least authorities say we have an aspect of closure. Jimmy, let me start with you. It seems like this young lady on TikTok has the right guy. And what does that mean in terms of understanding somebody's life back 10 years ago? Is that relevant?
Yeah, I think it's certainly relevant, Chris. I mean, all these things are pieces of the puzzle. And I think there's a lot more that we don't know right now than we do know. Now, you did a great job at the top of the show laying out a roadmap here. We have to manage our expectations. We know that this man has been charged with 4 counts of murder. So the police have to have the goods. You talk to a specialist on DNA. That's obviously a piece of it. The other piece now is going to be to grow and scrub social media. And that TikTok user that you just played, that is a piece of it. Chris, we've done this so many times before, me and you, over the years. I always say this: every murder comes down to the 4 L's: love, lust, loathing, or loot. It's going to be one of those 4 things. That's going to be the connection. We're going to know a lot more, I think, on Tuesday when he has his initial appearance.
Counselor Eiglarsh, what do you make of the stated disposition of the suspect in custody? Being quiet, not saying that he was protesting, not saying that he was confessing, asking if someone else was arrested.
Nothing. I read absolutely nothing into that. A guy that's this smart, who has studied forensics, could clearly be manipulating, could start to, want attention. It could mean absolutely nothing. To me, I only care about forensics. I want to know why it is that they believe he is the one who did this. Because right now, just so we're clear, all we know is that law enforcement announced to the world that they believe they've got the right guy. That's it. We've heard that before. We don't know what that means.
DNA connection. You listen to CC. You understand this as part of the tools of your trade. What does that mean about what they think they found in that room?
They better have scientific evidence. So I don't know if anyone else picked this up. And again, I might be speculating, but when they asked the chief, do you have the weapon, the murder weapon? He said no. Right. That told me, in my 30 years of experience, that likely, and again, I'm speculating, if they don't have the weapon, it's because the defendant didn't tell them where the weapon is, which means that he's likely not cooperating, not giving any statements, which makes the forensics that much more critical because they don't have a confession. Likely they don't have a busload of nuns who saw him do this. So you've got to have the science there. And I think that's what this case is going to be about.
I want to show something to you, Mahandi, about what this guy has put out into the world before. Reddit, he is a criminology student at the graduate and now postgraduate doctoral level. And he was soliciting help with maybe it was a research project, maybe it was a personal project. It was on Reddit. Dusty, you have some of these in the control room. You have some of the queries that were up there. Here it is. This study.
Let me also remind you guys, most lawyers do not have doctrines. Most FBI agents don't have doctrines. So he has actually gone further than in schooling wise than most of the people that are going to be trying him. Think about that. Most of the people trying him will not have, most of them probably won't even have a master's. They'll have law school. FBI, you don't need a master's. You just need a bachelor's. A lot of cops, you just need a bachelor, if anything. So he legit is going to have more education than probably the whole Moscow Police Department combined.
He seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings about your experience, throughout your experience. And it's really just trying to connect how people feel with different aspects of criminality. Now, this guy is tricky to do a profile on, isn't he? Because it'd be one thing if he was putting this out into the world and he drove a truck, but he's a criminology student, so it could just be part of his studies.
Could be. Sometimes we listen to the words, and sometimes we listen to the music, and sometimes both. The interest, in violence and crime. If this guy indeed is ultimately convicted, and it's him, it wouldn't be the first time that somebody, in law enforcement or criminology, has gotten into it because they've got some dark impulses they're either trying to channel, understand, or have a place to hide within. But the idea that he might be looking at this kind of stuff could represent, his abnormal interest in it, but a place where he can safely pursue it, as well as maybe try to deep.
Ida, yes, but a law degree is not in criminology. That's what I'm trying to say. You have a JD in law. You don't have a JD in criminology. That's what I meant.
In his understanding of his own darkest impulses. But apart from that, the music is, as has been said by other panelists, this is a very bright guy. Historically, there's some manipulative, opportunistic things that we've learned about, if true. And if we start talking about organized versus disorganized offenders, if this is indeed our guy, we're talking about, predatory behavior, purposeful, goal-oriented, in service of one of those 4 L's that was talked about by the other panelist.
Right. I had another guy who's been doing these cases for a long time on the criminal defense side. He said, the profile picture that they're putting up of him, the arrest picture, people are saying, well, look how calm he looks. How would you look? Especially if you're someone who didn't do what you're being charged with. And again, we know what the authorities think, but we only know what they show ultimately. So how would you look? You know what I mean? So some of these things are red herrings. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want you guys to scrub.
All right, what you guys are missing, though, my point is he's going to be able to poke holes in the science and the DNA evidence because he knows so much about the DNA evidence. His lawyer may not. His lawyer may work with him on poking holes in the science. He's not dumb enough to say anything. He's not one of these people that the police are going to be able to, steamroll. Unless there's some manifesto somewhere, and that's what this defense attorney was saying, if the only thing holding him is evidence, is science, then that science better be so rock solid that it's indisputable. That might be hard to do. It'll be a very interesting trial, to say the least. Well, he shouldn't take stand. Nobody should take the stand. Very, very rarely should you take a stand in your own trial because you don't know what a jury is looking at. Hey, Tony, you just don't know what a jury is looking for. You can make a smile that's innocent and they'll think you're guilty. But he has an attorney. He's not going to speak. Oh, you think so, Grace? I don't. Just remember, guys, when you're on a trial, I don't know about Idaho. I've learned from certain cases it's no longer 12 jurors. But let's say it's even 6 jurors. All you need is one. Just one person to say, no, I'm not convinced it was him. Pippa, who's she? See, I don't think he would represent himself, but you never know. And if his parents have money, like people are saying, his parents would have got him a lawyer. Because just because you are just because you have a master's in criminology, you're not a lawyer. You don't take like full legal classes, so I don't know. But he's definitely too smart to be steamrolled. Rarely is recommended take a stand in your own defense. Yeah, nobody should ever take a stand in their own defense. Unless you're that good of an actress. And I know that a lot of people look at it as, I'm innocent, I didn't do anything, so I can talk. Doesn't matter. I learned this the hard way, guys. And a lawyer told me, you say nothing. Even if you're innocent, you say nothing. Cop wants to come in your house, you say no. Even if you are 100% completely innocent, you say no. Get a warrant. There is a reason why these laws are in place to protect us, and they do.
A veteran criminal defense attorney, James Gagliano, former FBI supervisory special agent, and Chris Mahandi, clinical police and forensic psychologist, more than 20 years of experience. Got a bunch of pros. That's what you need. And I appreciate it, especially where we are right now and on short notice. But there's very high interest in what happened 7 weeks ago on the campus of the University of Idaho. And now authorities believe they have their man, a 28-year-old named Brian Kohberger, and we're discussing what he has said so far, which in reporting is very little, in custody in Pennsylvania, waiting to be extradited. There'll be a hearing on Tuesday to have him taken back to Idaho. Idaho has the death penalty, by the way, so that's something to keep in mind. Counselor Eiglarsh, you must admit, though, it is an interesting question for someone in custody to ask if there have been any other arrests.
Sure. Again, he's a sharp guy. He's very much aware. He's had plenty of time to think about this. I don't know if it was calculated or not, or whether somehow he's wondering whether his, the person that helped him maybe aid and abetted in some way, whether they were arrested or not, or completely can be a red herring. We don't know with this guy.
Mahandi, it really does scramble the eggs of the typical way you do this when a guy is studying criminology. I mean, how does that change how you look at him?
Well, you have to know that he's thinking ahead, some moves on that perceived chessboard. That may be how he sees this as a sort of game. He's studied it. So he may be some moves ahead on the board, at least in his own mind. It may be feeding his grandiosity, his narcissism about how he might be able to outsmart people. So it definitely, adds to the equation in the sense of manipulativeness that he might be able to, put into play here. So it definitely raises the concerns about anything he says or does being purposeful and goal-oriented to obfuscate, what's really going on.
Now, Gags, of course, he may be ahead, but he wasn't ahead enough not to get caught, right? If this is the guy.
No.
And obviously that is the burden, that's the burden, Jimmy, on authorities. Now, so far, they were very tight-lipped and it served them well. And they haven't given a lot of information at this point. When do you believe, Jimmy, that it would be prudent for them to start putting out information?
Well, Chris, originally the police did not do any kind of crowdsourcing. That was something that developed further on. And there's reasons for that. Maybe they were concerned about somebody, unlawfully, conducting flight to get away. Maybe they weren't certain and they worked through this very slowly. But I also think it's important, Chris, to note here, you don't need to find the murder weapon to convict him of murder. And you don't need to have a motive. I mean, there's two parts, the criminal mind and the criminal act. But in this situation, Chris, I've seen plenty of crime scenes, horrific crime scenes. I've seen battlefield wounds. For what this man did with an edged weapon, this suspect, what he's alleged to have done, these are intimate crimes, these type of stab wounds that we've heard through the media, these gaping wounds, and to do it the way that he did, it had to have been obviously a depraved individual. But Chris, the amount of DNA, I think that's why police were patient. They kept him under surveillance. The FBI has a surveillance team that is top notch, working with local police and state police. They have him in custody. Now they'll work backwards and they'll put together a foolproof, safe case that he's not going to beat if he's the person that did this.
If the young woman on TikTok is right, Dusty, put up some of the DMs that they have. 2013, she was in touch with him. You talked about the 4 L's that lead somebody to homicidal behavior. Another one you could add to it is longing, right, which is a cousin of lust. And this is a kid who wanted to belong. We know that one, it's true about a lot of addicts who are self-medicating, especially that age, especially with a drug as heavy and hard as heroin. Though I must say, on the East Coast here, Pennsylvania, Heroin is a hard drug, very often starts as pill popping. The medicine cabinet is very often the first drug dealer for kids in this area of the country, oxycodone, OxyContin. So we don't know how he got into heroin, but it's a very heavy duty drug. But it's not like the old days where he had to start mainlining right away. And he's in rehab. He's sorry. He wants to belong. Thank you so much for inviting me to the party. If it's still real, she says, yeah, of course, you can come. Now, Jimmy, that does start to help you in understanding what this guy is about. Actually, let me bounce to Mahandi with that because you do the profile work. And when you have somebody who has had that in their past, what does that tell you as a potential building block?
Well, you have obsession and dependency needs. A person who, is looking for outside validation or outside things to make them feel better. There's often a lot of obsessive thinking that goes with people that abuse substances when you take away the substance. And those obsessions may have been things to do with violence or hostility or grievances of, entitlements that they feel are denied, maybe a love, or a lust that they felt was not reciprocated. You sense that from some of these postings, that were reported, that neediness. And at what point possibly, does that turn to hate over, many perceived rejections? It's a hypothesis as to why. But, obviously, we also heard about him being, manipulative and exploitive, dragging this, woman around to do his errands for his drugs, which is not uncommon, but, it speaks to maybe a way of looking at people as objects as opposed to other human beings, in this equation.
Counselor Aguilar, how else would they have found this guy? If they don't have something forensic connecting him to it, the only possibility I can think of is they were so interested in that car speeding by or speeding from the scene, and they knew more about the car than they let us know that they knew about the car, which means they knew it was his, and that's why they're interested in him.
I have to believe that with all the Ring doorbells out there and all the video surveillance, that played a big part. But it's hard for me to see this without there being some type of forensic trail that leads right to him. I cannot envision this case, because understand, they've got allegedly probable cause to make an arrest. That's the battle. The war is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the highest burden out there. You got to have something more than that car is the same car and we think you're around the same area. They got to put him there. They've got to connect his DNA to this crime.
Right, and they charge him with felony burglary, which, as you know, is just a layered charge to give them more irons in the fire, but it does speak to their ability to make the case. And again, at the lowest level, probable cause, which is their reasonable suspicion that he was in that house in commission of a crime. But, look, there are a lot of reasons for a defense attorney, short of a big DNA footprint in that house, unless he'd been there for a party, to make a case. So let's take a break. We'll keep talking about what we know.
See, everyone keeps talking about DNA, but you have to remember, DNA, you don't get DNA back immediately. They knew immediately who they were looking for. They just couldn't find him. Yes, I'll be happy to, Dr. J. And if you want to support the channel, like Dr. J, thank you, Jen. Oh, while we're on break, I owe a bunch of you guys the Super Chat song, so I'm going to play it while we're on break. Oh.
Super chat. Wait, I just got a super chat. Hold on, wait. Somebody just hit me with a super chat. Who was that? You didn't have to do that. Use a big dog supporter and you prove that. There's plenty other ways ways to help subscribe, you chat. But you's a boss and I conclude that. Super chat, who is that? You didn't have to do that. You's a big dog supporter and you prove that. There's plenty other ways to help subscribe, you chat. But you a boss and I conclude that. Thank you for the money, it goes a long way. It helps me run the channel, so you get all my thanks. Just bought me lunch to get me through the day. I appreciate the love and I hope I can repay you for the super chat. Who is that? You didn't have to do that. You a big dog supporter and you prove that. There's plenty other ways to help subscribe, you chat. But you a boss and I conclude that. Super chat, who is that? You didn't have to do that. You a big dog supporter and you prove that. There's plenty other ways to help subscribe, you chat. But you a boss and I conclude that. Don't like the video, don't hit subscribe. I always try to tell them, they do it every time. I tell them it's a problem, they acting like it's fine. I'm begging them to stop, but they leave me with a like. Please don't like the video, don't hit subscribe. I always try to tell them, but they do it every time. I tell them it's a problem, but they acting like it's fine. I'm begging them to stop, but they leave me with a like. Super chat. Wait, I just got a super chat. Hold on, wait. Somebody just hit me with a super chat. Who is that? You didn't have to do that. You's a big dog supporter and you prove that. There's plenty other ways to help subscribe, you chat. But you's the boss and I conclude that.
The best super chat song ever. I love it. I gotta write to them. I'm telling you, it's just a happy ass song. It just puts you in a dancing mood. But I gotta break it up though. I played it now because I owed a couple of people the song, but I need to record it and break it up so it's not always starting at the beginning. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, you do. You wiggle. It bobs your head. I agree. There was something else I was going to say, though, and I forgot. Yeah, Huda, I'm wondering how many people are going to apologize to Bolt Jocks? 50% of this community. 50%. Thank you, Jay or Tanya. 50% of this community. Not too much over here because I didn't put up with it. But 50% of this community believe that Jack D was the killer. I can't believe it. But no, his school was 10 minutes away. That's why he did it right before break. He knew he was going home. Crusoe, I think it was actually brilliant. Yeah, not over here. But I think it was a brilliant move. But I do wonder if somebody else really is involved. I agree, Mickey. But one thing I will say again, I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. Psychics, spirit boxes, you heard it here first. They were all full of shit. Like I said. I will take credit for that. See, Huda, I think he did the killing alone. I don't think he acted alone in total.
There are some interesting questions that authorities are absolutely trying to chase down right now. Why are they asking for more crowdsourced information if they think this is the guy? Because they're trying to develop an understanding, and we don't have any reason to believe that the man they have in custody, Brian Koberger, 28 years old, PhD in criminology. That's what he's studying at the Washington State University, which is right next to Moscow, Idaho. So the idea that he could have been there is not unreasonable. The idea that he could have been there but is not the guy is not unreasonable. We only know what they show, things for them to look at. Did he know them? How would he know? Did he follow them on Instagram? Can he explain that if he did? Had he ever been in that house before? That would work one of two ways, right? It may be a way of exculpating him, getting him out of this area of suspicion. That's why my DNA was there. I was there before. Why would a 28-year-old be at a college kid's party? He's a doctoral student, PhD student. Did they usually hang out with kids that age? No, but that doesn't mean that he didn't. So there are a lot of different questions. How did they find his DNA if he's not in the CODIS, okay, the combined DNA indexing system? Well, we've been talking about that, and that's why we have CC Moore joining us again, DNA expert and panelist James Gagliano and Chris Mahandi. I also want to start bringing in calls. Dusty's getting them ready. Before we go to them, I want your guys' questions first. CC, Chris, and Jimmy, what are your big questions right now, other than the obvious of, you know, how do they know this is the guy? I'll start with you, CC. What's your big question right now?
Did they have DNA? I think it looks like they did, but they have not confirmed that yet. And so that is my biggest question.
And of course, they could have gotten his DNA while they were surveilling him. Depending on where he went and how they went him, they may have picked up something that he had handled and they got a sample there. Chris Mahandi, what is your question?
My question is, what nexus was there between these victims, you know, and the suspect? And I believe that there must be one. Was he on the periphery? How did their paths cross? Because I do believe that there is a nexus that we're going to find out more about.
Yeah, and Jimmy, that is something that you were informing in your early perspective here as we start the next hour of our special coverage into the Idaho murders of those 4 students. Authorities believe they have the man responsible. They have charged Brian Kohlberger, 28 years old, with 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary, which is a layered charge to say we know he was in the house and this is what we think he did there. Jimmy, you had said lust, loot, love, and there was one other one. What was the 4th L?
Loathing.
Loathing, hatred. So how did he know them? Did he know them? That's going to be a very specific thing. What is your main question at this time?
Yeah, Chris, my main question would be, where's the digital exhaust? Much of this looks like it's predicated on DNA evidence. And look, we've only been able to do that since about 1986 or 1987, make cases on DNA. But I want to know who he's talked to. I want a complete link analysis done, and then I want to scrub signal intelligence. Everything today is digital exhaust, Chris. Cell phones, going through it, using your Easy Pass, license plate readers. I want to see all that. I think that's going to be laid out here pretty quickly by the police.
This is not Law and Order. It's always about the compendium of analysis. It's rarely just about that one fatal flaw. But here's one thing we know now as we go to Dusty in the control room. This murder scene tells us a story also. This was not random. This wasn't it started one way, but then went another one. These were brutal, multiple murders and an odd trait of leaving 2 people alive. So either it speaks to an intimacy or a psychopathy, somebody who is literally psychopathic. So with that, Dusty, who do you have on the line who wants to talk to these experts?
Okay, well, we actually have Kim from Washington State, and she's our first caller. She's got some kids at the University of Washington.
Hey, Kim, thank you for calling.
State.
Of course. Hey, they're at Washington State. They go to Wazoo. And yeah, I don't understand how anybody thinks that one person could have just done this. The kids all know more than one person did it. This guy was a teacher. He wasn't just a student. He taught students. He taught all the way up until the break that were in class. So I don't understand how anybody thinks it's just one person. It can't be. The kids said it wasn't. They've told the police that. I don't know why nobody's listening to these kids.
So, Jimmy, you're nodding your head. The idea that it took more than one person to do this, do you believe that that is a foregone conclusion?
The number one thing that I took out of the press conference today was the sheriff saying, no, we're not concerned right now about the staying on lockdown or that there was an additional threat out there. Doesn't mean that there weren't accomplices. Doesn't mean that the police aren't going to turn up more people involved in this. But Chris, to answer the caller's question, the fact that you had young kids in bed at night early in the morning. Some of them had been drinking, and someone was able to overpower them in their sleep. That's the only way that you could have done this. We know that there were some defensive wounds that were some of the kids fought back, but they were probably awakened from a deep stupor, and he had the jump on him. And that's how somebody could possibly kill 4 people by themselves.
Dusty,
Chris,
who
I
else?
think it,
Go ahead, Cece, please.
We have Martine from Bronx, New York.
All right, Martine, I'll get your question in a second, but Cece, what comment did you want to add?
I was just going to say that really leads to my other big question in this case is, was this his first crime? Because it was so brazen. Who would plan to take out 4 people for their very first violent crime? And so it really does raise the question of what has he done in the past? Is this his first time?
Martine,
well, and
what's your
just
question?
And adding to that, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Let me hear from Martine, then I'll come back to you, Mahandi. Go ahead, Martine.
Chris Fratello, how you doing? This is a question for Chris Mahandi. I'd like to understand how, with the understanding that many of us could have, dark thoughts and whatnot.
Lost you there for a second.
What? I'm sorry?
I'll explain the question to you,
if you could repeat
Chris.
the question.
I'll get it to you. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Martine, go ahead.
Yes. While many of us could have dark thoughts and think even heinous things, but we don't follow it through. Do you think that, besides, do every one of us have a killer instinct, but what brings that out? What would bring that out in a person? We're a typical normal person, what seems normal, like this gentleman, he's no gentleman, carried out this unbelievable crime. What would flip the switch in his brain like that?
And just to be careful, whoever did this is no gentleman, but we don't know that Kohlberger did it. We know that authorities have arrested him, which means that they have cleared the initial hurdle of making arrest, which is probable cause. They have not put out evidence that makes this a slam dunk, just to be fair to the process. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, keeping that in mind that, we have a person that's accused, whoever did this, is not somebody who switch just, tripped. This is somebody that's been thinking about it an awful long time, obsessing about it, fantasizing about it, and then they finally, did it. So it's not a normal person in that regard, probably psychopathic tendencies, detached enough and hateful enough. I would lean toward the loathing hypothesis as the 4 L's in this situation. Maybe started as love, ended up as loathing. But make no mistake, this is not a normal person that does this. This is a person that has been committed and resolved. And the question from the previous person, I think this addresses it as well, that while this may have been their first time physically doing the action, many more times in their mind over the years, probably they've thought and fantasized about doing something similar, not necessarily to these victims per se, but perhaps other people that cross their paths.
And look, this is the nightmare scenario, right? Which is where you have somebody who lines up whatever they did in their past with addiction or whatever, as someone you wouldn't link to criminality unless CC's right and he has a criminal past, although it wouldn't be that easy for him to get into a doctoral program. But be that as it may, this is the nightmare scenario where the guy looks like Kohlberger, which is not somebody you think to be some homicidal maniac, and yet he is, if that's what winds up being true. And that's one of the reasons that so many people are so interested in this. The loss of innocent life in a place that they were supposed to be safe. And the idea that there was a monster in their midst because it wasn't the obvious of they were dating and it went bad and then he did this, or this was a person with a known past of violent and aggressive behavior and this is what the grudge was. That's why it's so frightening. That's why one of the reasons there's so much attention. Dusty, you have another caller?
I do. We have another caller. This is Howard from North Miami Beach, Florida.
Howard, thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris, and gang there. Happy holidays to all of you. My question is this. The suspect right now, let's say he goes out, he hires a top-notch legal team or a top-notch criminal attorney. He realizes the cops right now have some DNA. They've got a white car that's similar. Okay, but as at the moment, they've got no murder weapon and no traceable motive as of yet. what's the chance that this guy can get off? And then if I had a second part to that, I could ask is it possible that he can get a impartial jury with as much news coverage as this case is getting? Or can you see a change of venue? Sorry about all the questions, but I thought those were maybe pertinent.
No, they're both good, Howard. Wish I thought of them. Jimmy, what do you got on those?
Those are great questions. First of all, we know that Moscow, Idaho is about 25,000 people. And with the influx of media attention and obviously people being concerned and interested in this case, it will be very difficult to seat a jury here, Chris. And yes, I think to the caller's question, yes, there could be a change of venue. Now, the caller also asked about our adversarial system. Chris, you're a lawyer. You know how it is. Look, everyone is entitled to a defense. I'm going to guess that there are going to be people coming out of the woodwork looking to defend this guy, prominent attorneys. The police had better have the goods here. And I believe with the FBI's help and the state police's help, I think that for them to have made the charges today, I believe they've got the goods on this guy. They wouldn't have brought these charges if they didn't have them. All right,
here's my defense. The first one is, if you just have me in the car and you're placing me there circumstantially, you don't have me. Okay, you have my DNA in the house. Now it gets to be a very difficult defense, but it's a layered one. One is, well, let me push process on how you identified this evidence, the chain of custody of it, and the authenticity of it, or the reliability of it. How sure are you? I'll test the technology on it. Now, that's not easy, okay? So that takes you to the next layer, which is the best case a defense attorney would make here, if you can place the suspect, the defendant, eventually at the location. Yeah, I was there before. I was there. I was at a party. And even if the other residents of the house say, I never saw this guy before. Yeah, okay, maybe you didn't see me, but I was there. Now, Cece, that takes the defense to you. What is the ability to separate, okay, you've got my DNA, but it's just because I was in that room a while ago, not that night. How hard is it to prove otherwise?
It really depends what type of DNA sample they had. And so we see this in a lot of cases I'm involved in. If it is just touch DNA, if it is something very minute, you could argue that there was transfer, or you could argue that he was there months before. If it's blood, that is going to be much more difficult to explain away. Now, as our technology has gotten more sensitive, we've had to be more careful about DNA evidence, because we do know that these very minute amounts of DNA can be transferred. And so until we know exactly what they had, it's really difficult to predict what the defense will be, what they'll have to work with. But it is something that I think the investigators are always aware of. And so that first interview is so important, because they're hoping, if I can project into their minds, that he's going to say, I didn't know these people. I was never in that house. If they're really smart, they'll say, oh yeah, I knew one of those girls. I had a relationship with one of those girls. I had a one-night stand, something like that. That sets them up for a much better defense from the beginning.
All right, let's go to break on this thought. Here's one thing that's fairly safe to say, okay? Moscow, Idaho is not the most sophisticated place for criminal investigations, okay? That's not an insult. It's just circumstantial, right? They don't deal with a lot of big crimes. But they've had a huge team of very sophisticated investigators on this case. And there's a ton of interest, okay? For them to make an arrest that is soft would be crazy for them to do, because of the level of scrutiny that will come down on them. Keep that in mind as well. You do not want to swing and miss when you are in the place of any investigator, let alone these. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to give you the latest on the details we have of this potential case-breaking arrest in the Idaho murders of 4 kids who were killed in their sleep. We'll be right back.
Now, as I said earlier, I don't really watch Chris, but this happens to be an excellent show, like tonight's show. And when Phil said it, I was going to say it. He usually does more political stuff, and I don't really care about politics. But his this show tonight is really good. And I think his experts are really good. I think he's not doing sensationalism. Like I'm Hey, I'm stopping painting to watch it. I'll be live for New Year's. I'm a loser and have no life, so I'll be live. So those of you that have no life like me or are staying home with children, we can all bring in the new year together. I will be live on camera. Grab your drinks, grab a bottle of wine, because I'll be having some wine. And we can bring in 2023 together. I pretty much do it every year. I think as long as I've been on YouTube, I've been going live on New Year's. We could get drunk together. I'll probably still be painting. Because, like, I get into a groove and then something will happen. I got to pick up this one. I got to drive this one. Or I got to go get this. Or Banfield comes on. See, I said that earlier, Blackjack. That I do believe that too. Can you go live in it? Oh, that's right, Janelle. By the time I wake up, it'll be New Year's. I forgot you guys are ahead. Totally forgot. I will be here ready 2023 for 7 hours. I can't believe it's 2023. Time to pack up the Christmas stuff. And my birthday is in 5 days. MGL's birthday is tomorrow, by the way. And mine is in 5 days. Boo-hoo. I'm getting old. There was something I was going to say, and now I forgot. No, I usually take it down on my birthday. Oh, that's Fluffer's birthday. Fluffer's birthday is the 7th. The twins are the 11th. And then I'm good until Dayton. Oh, you're only 40? You're so young. Well, breaking news.
Right now, after 7 weeks, authorities believe they know who killed those 4
happy
students some 7
birthday.
weeks ago at the University of Idaho after a night of reverie and potentially in their sleep. They have named him as Brian Koberger, a 28-year-old PhD student at Washington State University, which is just a few miles away from the University of Idaho campus, obviously just across state lines, maybe about 10 miles. 28 years old. Did he know them? Why would he have known them? Why would he have been in that house or in that area? Is this about the car? Obviously, the interest here stems from the loss of innocent life. Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin. For their families now, this is about closure, and the aspect of closure is, of course, justice and seeing it be served. Is this a crime that was performed by one person, committed by just one man? Adding to that question and the intrigue around it is that the reporting from Koberger in custody is that he asked authorities, according to Brian Enton, our senior correspondent on this at News Nation, has anyone else been arrested? Now, is that a game from somebody who has criminology experience, and not just as, a TikTok fetish, but an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and now a doctoral education? Did he say, I didn't do this? Did he say anything else? We don't know. We do know that authorities believe they had probable cause to arrest him on 2 different charges, 4 counts of first-degree murder for each of the kids who were murdered in that house. Also, felony burglary. Now, that one may mean more on one level. That one requires that they can place him at the residence. There was a suggestion in the reporting that they have DNA. This case would be all about the DNA without a confession. And that does lead you down all these dark roads of whether this guy has some type of really dark, disturbed interest in this. We know this. Whoever committed the crimes in that house at the University of Idaho did it brutally and bloodily. and on purpose. So that leads you to a very limited set of possibilities of what the motives would be. Now, I want to bring in a top-notch panel. Craig Kane, 30 years experience conducting high-profile major investigations for the U.S. Marshals. Very important aspect of the tools of investigation here. Why? Because that's what's so impressive here is how they found this guy. Did fugitives here, U.S., overseas? And Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI agent, very sought after expert witness in criminal cases. I also have Bobby Chacon, veteran FBI special agent and attorney, also big time expert. People want him to talk about criminal and counterterror. Bobby, good to see you. Thank you for being with me. Let me start with you, though, Craig. We heard an FBI surveillance team was on this. They've been looking at him 4 days. What does that look and feel like, that process?
Well, they had to have probable cause to name this guy as a suspect. And I'm sure they wanted to make sure that when they hit the house, they had all their P's and Q's in order. They wanted to make sure the guy would be in the house so they wouldn't have a foot chase. They wanted to surveil the property and make sure they would have the whole perimeter covered properly so this guy could not escape either on foot or by vehicle. And also, maybe they wanted to do the surveillance to pick up any kind of DNA traces that this guy might have left behind, whether he threw some garbage out, a straw, a cup of soda, anything that would have his DNA on it to possibly link whatever DNA they might have found at the homicide.
Bobby, can you turn it around that fast? You've done a lot of high-profile investigations, so I want you to speak to two things. One, in terms of the celerity or the quickness of investigative turnaround. If they've been watching him for 4 days and they did get an item that they believe had his DNA on it, how fast could they get back an answer on that?
Well, they could get it back pretty fast. I mean, it's very similar to what happened in the Golden State Killer case. They surveilled him until they got the Coke can that he had been drinking out of. It's the same thing. Now, the thing that makes it quick is you have something to match it to. So they got a full profile probably at the scene, and they had to match it to somebody. And so once they had his DNA on a cup or whatever item it was, it doesn't take long to match that. The thing is, when you have nothing to match it to, you have to do a couple of different things. We do family DNA now. We run it through one of these genealogy websites to find family members. That may have been done in this case. But matching, because they have the unknown sample, and to match the known sample doesn't take that long.
Also, and this is probably the easiest thing for us to speculate on, Bobby, you've run investigations like this. My speculation is the last thing they want to do is swing and miss. It's not like they got this guy at the airport on his way out of the country. Take us inside the room in terms of making a decision about making an arrest in a high-profile situation like this. I know you always want to be certain that you can make probable cause, but what's the heightened sensitivity here? How real is it?
Well, you have prosecutors, Chris, that are going to possibly seek a death penalty in this case. Death penalty cases have a much more reviews, much more appeals, and they're just much closely more watched. And so you had the agents or the detectives working together, and they're really waiting to see when the prosecutors are comfortable going forward, because that's who's going to stand up in court, right? And so they had to be very certain, not only that they had enough probable cause to get an arrest warrant, but they have enough to prove at trial and get the conviction, or else they wouldn't go forward. Remember, with double jeopardy, we get one shot at this. So I think that they have, we're talking about this piece of evidence or that piece of evidence. I think they have multiple pieces of evidence. I think they do have his DNA at the scene that matches the DNA they got him. I think they may have a witness that may have seen him leave that house that night. I think that they've got, they've got the car and somebody that may have been in that car. I think there's multiple things that they have that built up to this case. We'll find out a little bit of that when the probable cause affidavit's released. We won't find all of it out because the prosecutors like to hold back. They just need to meet that probable cause burden in that affidavit. They don't want to give their whole case away yet. So we'll find some of these answers out. Unfortunately, we won't find all of them out next week.
One more, Bobby, the extradition hearing. What show do they have to make there that might give us more insight into why they want this guy, or is that low because Pennsylvania can just say, yeah, go ahead, take him?
Yeah, there's only one issue in an extradition, and we used to refer to extradition hearings on the federal level as identity hearings, because the only issue is, are you the person named in the warrant? Because if it was a common name, Bob Smith or something, you're like, oh, I'm not that Bob Smith in that warrant. But he'd have to prove that he's not the person named in the warrant. It's only an identity issue. That's the only issue. Most of the time they waive that because, you know, this is a guy, they have the goods. If he pushes for an extradition hearing, it'll take a couple of more days, but it's a slam dunk. He's the guy. Not that he's guilty, but he's the guy that's named in the affidavit in support of the arrest warrant.
Jennifer, insight into this idea of if you were a part of this investigation, all the media scrutiny, it's a national news story, and they say, yeah, we think this is the person. I know that investigators want to cross the T's and dot the I's, but isn't there a heightened level of internal scrutiny in a situation like this to not swing and miss?
Jack, seriously, because that's what somebody asked before, and I was wondering, and I just hadn't had a chance to look at it. He is in the food truck footage. If I pull it up, can you point out where?
Absolutely, Chris. They have dotted their I's and crossed their T's before they ever went out to make this arrest. And quite frankly, the search warrants that are being executed today and possibly even still as we speak are going to bolster their case even more, I believe. They're looking for that knife. They are looking for DNA from those victims. They're looking for indicia of this crime. And I think their case.
No, you fucking idiot. They're looking for a manifesto. They're looking for items of the killer. I mean, of the four. They're looking to see if they can find any of their stuff. But even that won't matter simply because you can say it's planted. They can easily, that could be wiped out because they can easily say that it's planted. But they're looking for proof. She's an idiot. She really is.
Case is going to be bolstered once the returns from those warrants are received.
We are showing men through a window in what is believed to be Kohberger's on-campus apartment at Washington State University. We had one of our reporters there earlier saying that she had seen them go inside. They came in a pickup truck and that they are obviously canvassing the apartment. That's why we were throwing you that. Now, Jennifer, you had said early on, I think this guy was in the house waiting for them. We do not see Kohberger in any of the video that has been released in terms of at the food truck or walking down the street. He does not appear to be the person they were with. He also shouldn't be with them because he's a 28-year-old doctoral student, not a college kid in Idaho.
By the way, the stuff about this sister, that's all hearsay. There's no proof of that at all. That's all hearsay by YouTubers.
Idaho. So what is just your general take of who this guy is and what they're saying about him?
Well, I think there is a nexus. I've personally seen it on social media where he was following Maddie and on another platform following Maddie and Kaylee. So I think this was very well planned out. I believe he did surveillance at that house. I believe he knew their general patterns. Part of the reason I think he targeted this house was because it was really a sitting duck.
First of all, if he targeted the house, the two roommates would be dead. I disagree with her. I don't think he stalked the house. I think he may have stalked them, but I do not believe he stalked the house. I just don't. Pennywise, are you a fucking idiot? How come nobody timed them out?
Duck target. You had people going in and out at all hours. You had a house with a lot of activity, which meant, it would not go as being unusual for him to be around or him to be in that area watching. So I think that he very closely targeted this group.
Let me bounce back to Bobby for 1 second. The fact that this guy studied
One juror, because I don't like her. I think she's a fucking idiot, and I'm entitled to my opinion. And if you don't like it, then don't stick around. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why you fucking fight with me every single time you come in here.
He's criminology. And you match that up with how he's behaving right now. And look, you never know how innocent people are going to act when they're put on the spot, especially if they don't have a lot of experience with the system. But how does that complicate how they work this guy in any interviews, Bobby?
Well, the interviews sometimes can be a little tougher, but I don't know if he lawyered up or not. He has the right to remain silent. I don't think it's all that impressive because obviously he's been arrested on a quadruple homicide with a complex crime scene fairly quickly. I mean, this was a lightning fast investigation. That the fact that he's already in custody tells me he's no criminal mastermind. Because we had the Delphi, Indiana case. That person was on the run for 5 years and lived in that small Delphi community. So I don't think this guy's a master criminal. I think that he got drawn in to this somehow psychologically to do this, and he worked himself up. I agree with Jennifer. I think he surveilled this house. I think he knew who those people were from social media and from stalking behavior from a distance. And I think he set up on this house. I think he wanted to try to commit maybe the perfect murder because of some of the things that he was outreaching to do his research on his PhD. But clearly.
Just to make clear, me saying really, that was about the Pennywise comment. That had nothing to do with you, one juror.
Clearly, he's not the criminal mastermind he thought he was if he's already in bracelets this quickly.
If, in fact, this is the guy. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with the latest information that we have on this significant development in the Idaho murder case. The authorities say they have their man. Why do they believe that? When we come back.
Amber is talking about Jen Koffel Differ, whatever the fuck her name is. Maybe not Bundy, though. Someone said John Wayne Gacy asked I think they said it was John Wayne Gacy that asked if somebody was, when he was arrested, if anyone else was arrested. Yeah, Ted Bundy. No, he used his hands, right? No. How did Ted Bundy kill? He used a knife, didn't he? Stone, don't worry about it. Yeah, he did use a knife. That's what I thought. I thought he used a knife. That's why someone said he didn't use a knife. I'm like, yeah, he did. He didn't use a gun. There was something else I was going to talk about, and I forgot. Also used wood outside sorority house. Yeah, what's up with my mods? Letting people go. I think he only left without completing the task of that one scream. No, I really, truly believe that he may have stalked the house that night. He may have looked at the house that night. That's why 4 of them died instead of 2. But I don't know. He left the other 2 roommates because he didn't know about them. That's what I'm saying. The Brian dudes are, I don't know. I have to look at it. Someone said he is, but I haven't confirmed it. I believe Ted Bundy used the knife too. He didn't use a gun. I know that. Yes. He used a variety of weapons. Ted Bundy didn't just use his hands to rape and kill. While people aren't sure even know all the weapons he used, we do know that he used a tire iron, various knives, a gun, and other items to beat his victims. He also used any foreign object he could to sodomize his victims before and after their death. He always kept souvenirs. He hid for about a week. He escaped a second time. He always bit his victims. He trained for his killings. He had a fan club. He had a daughter. Sitting in the chair with the owner still. I'll have to look. Allegedly, Southern Gal, allegedly. Ted Bundy used a knife, but he also used other stuff.
She knew him. She shows pictures of them together, texts from each other in high school, just to give us a flavor of who this man is that authorities now have in custody. Here's a clip of what she's put online tonight.
I used to be friends with Brian Koberger during my middle and high school years. And then before anyone comes at me and says that I'm just running for clout, I'm not. I have pictures that I will show you. I have screenshots that I will show you. I have yearbook pictures that I show you. I went to school with the kid. I was friends with him. I wouldn't make something like this up. I am just an absolute shock right now. My brother was really good friends with him. My other friend, Brandon, was really good friends with him. So that's Brian. Still has the dead face that it's thighs. I don't know. But when I spoke to him back in 2017, he was clean. He was a heavy heroin user back in high school. And it was just nice to see the kid clean up. And at that time, he said he was doing security detail. I believe it was at a school is what he told me. My mom sent me the old school yearbook. That was him. Brian Koberger, that's him. He went to Pleasant Valley. Graduated with, I think, my friend Christopher, a year younger than me. This is when he nonchalantly decided to make me drive him around the Poconos for heroin, and I had no idea. I thought I was just doing a nice deed because he needed something, and it turns out that he was getting heroin.
It's it's a very unusual situation that we have on our hands here. The crime scene itself, what was seemingly and apparently random. And now we have a young man, Larry Kobylinski, 28 years of age, who has studied criminology for a long time and is a very even demeanor, according to authorities, while in custody and only asking a single question as reported, has anyone else been arrested? How does it complicate the analysis of dealing with someone with his kind of skills and background?
Well, it's hard because he studied criminal justice, obviously, and he studied crime. And he's even done surveys to see how people felt as they were committing crimes. It seems that what I heard in this TikTok presentation is that he was into drugs even as a young person. And this might explain the rage and the passion and the terrible stabbing that he did to these 4 students. And he may have been on stimulants. He may have progressed from heroin, which is more down, to amphetamines and cocaine and things of that sort. And that might explain the viciousness of the attack.
Now, Counselor, at the end of the day, we only know what authorities can show.
All right, I got to show you guys this. This is fucked up. Hold on. All right. I want you guys to take notice of this. This is wild. Who gave me $1.99? Whoever gave me a super chat, thank you. Check this out. I have not seen this before. I have not seen anyone point this out before. So if I'm wrong and you guys have all seen this or somebody pointed it out, let me know. I have not heard this. So I was just watching to see if there was, if I could find the guy, if I could find, the dude like somewhere sitting. And something caught my eye, which very well could have been him. Check this out. What you're looking at is this screen, the bottom left corner. Check this out. I'm not going to play sound because it's someone else's video. Who is this guy? Watch his moves, or one of these guys in black. I think it's this guy. Oh, wait, no. You know what? I fucking missed it. I was looking at the wrong person. Hold on. I just saw it. That guy right there. Watch him. No, I could have sworn I just saw something else. No, forget it. I saw something else. Who's this person waiting all the way down there? Oh, absolutely. It was premeditated. But I don't see the person they're talking about, though. I thought I saw something before, but I guess I didn't. But there's somebody standing down here. What black sweatshirt? Over here? Nah, he's not in here. These two people? Nah, he's not either one of those. He could be one of these. No, we don't know if he was there. He could be this guy. Could be that guy. He could be the dude in the black in the back. Could be. But it's too far away to tell. Or it could be that guy. Could be this one. Charlie Ann, go suck a dick. Like, for real. All right, so hoodie guy follows him. And there's that guy. That's it. Right there. Nah, that's a girl. That's a guy and a girl. Welcome, No Way. Yeah, that's a guy and a girl. This is the guy that was in the black hat. Yeah, no, nobody leaves. These are the two people that was standing in the back. Nobody left after them. Yeah, 333 again. That's actually a good sign. Yeah, I don't think he was here. I was looking to see if anybody left after him, but they didn't. Those two people in the back just moved around. I don't think he was here. I really don't. Oh, well.
And as tantalizing.
What?
Thanks, Rob. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Go ahead. Don't hesitate. Take that first step and call now.
What the hell was that? Oh, because it was on pause. I don't think he knew that. Hey, Joseph. I don't think he knew that the other two were in the house. I don't believe he was in the house waiting for them. I really don't. He went in afterwards. I don't believe he was in the house. If he was in the house, he would know about the other two roommates. He did not know that the other two roommates were there. That is the whole video. That was the whole video. Now that we know it wasn't one of the obvious crew, there's a very good chance that that he had no idea they were there. And I believe that he followed one of the groups home. Whoever he killed first, which we'll find out in trial or maybe sooner, but whoever he killed first, remember, they all came home at similar times. They all came home within like 15 minutes of each other. The roommates were there already. "333 is actually a good number. Yeah, but even with the door locked, you just kill 4 people. If you want to get in, you can. I really don't think he knew they were there. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced he didn't know they were there.
Let's take your calls right now. I have Dr. Carol Lieberman, forensic psychiatrist and expert trial witness, Larry Kobelinsky, who is forensic genius, professor emeritus at John Jay College, and criminal defense attorney Alexandra Kazarian. So who do you got, Dusty?
Okay, we have Chris from Cleveland, Ohio. She's from Cleveland.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good. My question concerns the suspect's parents, and I saw that he was arrested there. I'm wondering if they were knowingly harboring a fugitive from justice, because certainly they knew where he lived in Washington, that he had a white Elantra. So my question concerns their culpability.
That's a possibility, right, Counselor? I mean, that would be separate and apart, but you'd have to know that they had any reason to believe it was him, right?
Well, they'd have to know, and they would have had to do something to become involved in the investigation. So unless they actively lied to the police, if the police called them and said, do you know where he is he in your house? And they said no, then they would be culpable. But just knowing that he's there and suspecting that he might be involved isn't really enough. You don't have to kick somebody out because they might have done something wrong. You have to actually know, and you have to actually do something to hurt the investigation in order to be culpable of something.
And one thing that is much more often true than it isn't is it is not easy for family members to believe that loved ones are involved in criminality. Next call, Dusty.
Exactly.
Yes, we have Barbara from Fort Wayne.
Now, whether he killed before or not, I don't know. But what I will say is about the dog, I do believe the dog he was testing. I think he skinned the dog. And this is just my guess.
Do you happen to have another package?
What?
Did you happen to find another package?
No. Well, I gotta check.
Grandma.
I do believe that he skinned the dog because he wanted to find out if. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that, Mimi. He wanted to find out how the cops were, if the cops were gonna react to it. They were going to find out, how the community was, if he was going to kill there. I believe it was absolutely planned out. And that was like the first way to test how community reacted, how the cops reacted, I absolutely believe that dog was him. I don't think it's a stretch at all. Oh, about the car? No, I'm not talking about the car. I'm talking about the skin dog.
In Indiana.
Hey, Barbara, how you doing? Thanks for calling in.
Fine. Thank you, Chris. Now that an arrest has been made, it makes more sense why the authorities kept the case details so quiet. What do you say, Chris, to everyone that called the police incompetent and thinking it was a cold case?
Well, if they thought it was a cold case, I mean, Larry Kobolinski was talking with me early on about how 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 7 weeks is a minute in investigative terms. This is a very quick arrest in this situation. Larry, you had said it is not uncommon for people to keep things close to the vest so that it doesn't get out of control. And they'd had some communication issues early on, which made keeping it tight even more reasonable, right?
Absolutely. Until you reach the point where they need the public to weigh in and give.
Oh, no. What happened? Uh-oh. That's it. No more Cuomo.
Biggest break by far in a case.
I'm not watching Banfield again. We already watched it. But let me show you guys the Brian Laundrie stuff real quick, and then I'm getting off because it's already midnight. And I need to get back to the bathroom.
Are trying to avenge her death by putting in black and white the horrible details of what they went through.
The allegations contained within the four corners of this complaint are salacious.
In arguing that the Laundries, quote, knew they could alleviate, at least in part, such mental suffering and anguish, the Petitos said they believe that on August 28th, Laundrie, while still in Wyoming, advised his parents he had murdered Gabby. But as the lawsuit points out, for several weeks, the Laundries not only refused to talk to the Petitos, they put out statements saying they hope she could be found alive.
If they did what is alleged in the four corners of this complaint, the Laundrie family acted with indecency. They acted not as humans. This girl was part of their family.
The Laundries were accused for weeks by protesters of not being forthcoming. Police in Northport said they'd not gotten cooperation as to whether they knew anything about where Gabby was. But the Laundries did tell police Brian.
This is the wrong clip. Hold on. Da-da-da. Hold on. Sade, I'm still painting in there. History. All right. What?
How does this look to you?
That's cute. It's all right.
The fabric's weird, but I ordered it online. It's a little big in the back, but I can like do that. But I ordered it online. Not what I was expecting at all.
You read. At the time, Pat Riley was coy and he did not want to divulge the contents of that letter. However, the contents of that letter, according to Riley, have now been uncovered in a court filing, the court filing that I began reading to you about the discovery of these, or the seeking of the discovery of these documents and the discovery process for these documents coming to light in advance of the depositions in advance of this lawsuit between Gabby Petito's family and Brian Laundrie's family. I will skip ahead to a later on paragraph in this letter. Again, this is Pat Riley, the attorney for the Petitos, writing to Matthew Luca there on the right side of your screen for Brian Laundrie's family, Chris and Roberta Laundrie. And I'll read this as follows. Request number 16 is certainly relevant because, again, it goes to the issue of knowledge on the part of your clients of Gabby's passing and the location of her body. This request certainly would also include the note that Roberta Laundrie wrote to Brian Laundrie, which she offered to bring a shovel to help bury the body. This note was released to the custody of Mr. Bertolino on Friday, June 24th, 2022, by the FBI. This letter is sent in a good faith effort to resolve this continuing discovery dispute. If I do not hear from you within 10 days from the date of this letter that you will provide the documents response to the request for the production of documents, I will file a motion to compel and set this matter for hearing. Sincerely, Pat Riley. Now, this motion that he references at the end of this letter, that is already underway. And so the production of documents motion will be heard in Sarasota County Court in front of Judge Hunter W. Carroll on March 13th at 11 a.m. That is a date that is circled on our calendars. And really at the center of this is the discovery process for the documents. And this document that we are really honed in on this live stream is the document, the burn after you read letter between Roberta Laundrie and Brian Laundrie. I know this is a lot to follow for folks that have been following this story for the last year plus. You're probably able to follow along. I will try to slow things down for those of you who have just maybe you're coming back to the story for the first time since it really became, of course, a massive.
Did I get struck? Did I get struck? No. Did I? I don't see it as struck. Did I get struck? Oh, all right. What are you talking about, Glory? But can you guys believe that? That's insane. Do you want me to bring you a shovel? Holy fuck. Can you imagine? That's something I would never say to my kid. And I would protect them. But I would never say, do you want me to bring a shovel to bury her? That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I'd be like, look, you figure it out. We'll worry about it at home. But not, do you want me to bring a shovel to bury Gabby? And then not tell Gabby's parents. That they just took this into a whole new light. And I had their back the whole time. I did. I stuck up for them and said they lost a son too. You know, this is hard on them. I gave them the benefit of the doubt that they didn't know anything and that they were just protecting their son. Well, that bit me in the ass. Thanks a lot, Roberta. Crazy. Exactly. You figure it out. We'll talk later. Like, I'm sorry, but I had these people's backs. I protected them. And now they can rot in hell. No, that's what Bertolino said. I don't believe that. Because this was discovered in discovery. Bertolino tried to say that it was before it was put out. That's all bullshit. That was Bertolino's excuse. Crazy. Roberta's evil. I agree. No, Joseph, that's what Bertolino tried to say. But after hearing what was written on it, and now we find out what's in it, yeah, that makes perfect sense. We still don't know. No, we don't. There's a lot of questions we don't know, but now it makes sense why they even filed the lawsuit. But I really gave them the benefit of the doubt that they were just protecting their son. But no, they knew she was dead. They knew exactly what he did. That's probably why they let him commit suicide. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But my friends, I've been on for 3 hours. 3 hours now, a couple of hours earlier. My painting is never going to get finished. So we must part ways. It's time to go. I love you all. But yeah, I got to get back. I got to finish this painting. I'm going to be up half the night. So, I hope you guys enjoyed it today. I will see you guys later tomorrow for New Year's Eve. Don't forget, we have a bunch of candle giveaways. Members have their own candle giveaway that I slacked on all week. But we're going to bring in 2023 with free candles. We're going to bring in 2023 with no drama. We're going to bring in 2023 that I will finish my classes probably in about 2 weeks. I'm still going to need help with Photoshop because I still suck. But big plans for 2023. And let's do it. Let's do it right. So, all right. I will see you guys later. I will see you guys tomorrow. Janelle, I won't be up in 7 hours. So I want to say Happy New Year. For everyone in Australia, Happy New Year. For everyone else, tomorrow night, Happy New Year. We'll celebrate. I will have an open panel. You guys talk about whatever you want to talk about. We will celebrate all 3 coasts of Eastern, Central, Pacific. And we'll have a good time. All right, bring your wine and champagne. I don't do champagne, but I happen to have wine in the fridge. And I will see you all tomorrow. If something breaking happens during the day, I'll be on. Most likely, I'll just see you guys tomorrow night. And Hawaii. Most likely, I'll just see you guys tomorrow night. And that's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys for super chats, PayPals, Cash Apps, everything in between. More importantly, thank you for spending the last 3 hours with me. I will see you guys later. Peace. And if you like what you saw tonight, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Peace out.